The Paul W. Smith Show. News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, Guy Gordon.
Good Thursday morning, everybody. It is the weekend eve. And I don't know, ladies, have you seen the temperatures that they're talking about for next week?
Yes.
We're talking temps in the 60s. We welcome in everybody that's watching us on Facebook Live through the WJR.com or WJR's Facebook page. If you want to tune in and just see how rugged we look, at least how rugged how I look at this time of the morning. But we welcome in Marie Osborne, who's riding the news desk today, Dana Clark on traffic, and Thomas, the Grand Poobah for the Paul W. Smith Show. And so... Ladies, as of yesterday, if you are under the age of 50, and I'm not going to ask anybody to divulge their age, but as of now, beginning on Monday, if you're under the age of 50 and have an underlying health condition, you will be eligible for a vaccine. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get one, but at least you'll be eligible. What do you think about that?
Oh,
Yay.
Darn.
Wonderful.
I'm not old enough yet.
Not old enough yet. Well, on the 22nd, anybody 50
That's right.
and under on the March 22nd is eligible. So
50
that's exciting,
and over, guys.
news.
50 and over, guys.
Yeah, 50. Yeah,
It's
so
50 and over,
getting
guys.
close. I know. Me and you,
Yeah.
Ann, we got to wait till we're in our 20s. But
Yeah. Sometime this summer.
Yeah, I think this is a good step. My question is this: just because you are eligible, we've only got 47% of seniors vaccinated with one shot in the state of Michigan. So we got still half our 65 plus group to go. So you're going to hear from a lot of counties saying, yes, we can, but you're going to be waiting for a while because it's going to take us several weeks to clear that backlog. We will get to you when that happens. And then you have to talk about what your underlying health conditions are. So, I mean, do you think people will be honest about that? Marie, I believe you just froze. And that is an underlying health condition, by the way.
Right, there you go. You're in.
So what's the list of underlying health conditions? Give us some of the
Things
highlights.
like diabetes, COPD, heart disease, obesity, and smoking. Smoking is being treated as a disability or underlying health condition. And there is nothing in here that explains how they will verify that underlying health condition that you're going to claim to have. So how worried should we be about cheating?
Let's not be worried. Let's not be worried. Let's just say, if you can get in there and get it, I'm not mad at you.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we're supposed to show up with medical records. I don't know how that's going to work. How do they know?
That
I don't
hasn't
wanna
been
be
made clear yet.
That's
Medical
all.
records?
Oh, you mind if I can't smoke in here? Okay. And you're in.
That's exactly it. All you do is put a pack of Marlboros in your breast pocket, or if
There
you
you
really want to be hip, roll them up in
Roll
your
it up.
sleeve.
Anybody want a cigarette? No? Oh, okay.
So when this story crossed the threshold yesterday, Gail and I are sitting in the den, and she turns to me and says, geez, do you think I might qualify as being obese? Now you tell me how the heck I'm supposed to answer that question.
Gail is a mess.
The answer
Gail is something.
no.
Say no.
No.
She desperately wants this vaccine, and it's like, if that isn't a thinly veiled, does this dress make me look fat question, I don't know what
That's
is.
the setup.
Oh, yeah. I hope you answered that one properly. You're still here today, so I think you did.
It devolved into a discussion about BMI formulas.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was clinical enough that there was no judgment there.
Well, honey, let's go see.
That's right. Oh, yeah. This is to the woman who put her
I
toe on the
know.
scale
Yeah,
when
you
I was
owe her
weighing
one.
myself on Monday.
You owe her one.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But everybody, just because you're eligible doesn't mean you're getting one. County health departments are still going to have the same criteria, so we're just going to have to be patient. But in the meantime, we can develop a really nice smoking habit between now and then, and it'll get us in line quicker. We'll be back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show right after we check in with Dana for WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Lions Clubs International.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed, support causes that matter, change lives, change communities, change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
We have a closure this morning due to a vehicle fire. This is in Port Huron. 94 westbound between Range Road and Gratiot Road is closed. Once again, a vehicle fire there. You can take Range Road instead. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by the National Electrical Contractors Association, NECA. Put the expertise and skill of NECA signatory contractors to work on your commercial, public, industrial, or residential construction project. NECA contractors like Highgate Electric are powering Michigan's future project after project on time and on budget. Learn more at smcneca.org.
Seen some clouds in this morning, but I think we'll get some sunshine around in spots as we go through the day. Partial clouds and sun by this afternoon, 36. Overnight tonight, cleared out down near a colder 20 degrees. Suburbs even chillier. Few clouds and sunshine tomorrow. Gusty northwest breeze and milder 44. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stitchicon, News Talk 760 WJR.
So here was an interesting, well, let's get back to Rush Limbaugh, get his thought for the day here on News Talk 760. Here's Rush.
There is trouble brewing at the Amazon Prime Washington Post. It's big trouble. More than 400 employees of the drive-by media giant have written to the boss, Jeff Bezos, demanding that he fork over higher pay and better benefits. A labor dispute has been raging inside the newspaper for a year. It pits management against the union that represents over 800 editorial and business employees. Now the dispute has gone public. According to the open letter, Bezos offered the Amazon Prime Post workers a pitiful $10 a week raise. They were insulted, especially since Bezos is one of the richest men in the world. They claim that digital subscriptions are way up, online traffic is way up, and that advertising is meeting goals. So the employees want fairness, more money, more family leave, better health benefits, more retirement income, more job security. They want more of everything. Mr. Bezos, maybe there's a way out of this mess. How about offering your disgruntled staff, the Amazon Prime Washington Post, a bigger discount at Amazon Prime Whole Foods? Maybe with a minimum purchase, of course. After all, it's only money, but you never know what can satisfy angry liberals that won't cost you very much.
Rush Limbaugh, noon to 3, today, right here on WJR. We all have felt isolated.
Okay. That was a quick pivot. I was going to talk to you guys about something, and I forgot about Rush.
Yeah, good job there,
Like
guy.
you remembered.
You remembered.
A little bit of whiplash. I want to delve into this this survey that I found about asking people whether or not you're living the American dream. and it's because it calls into question, first of all, how you define that. And they really don't ask you to define it. But there were some clear-cut divisions between people, and it wasn't based on partisan stuff at all. It was some lifestyle stuff. So I want to get your reaction to that. Also, we can talk about, Gail and I had this conversation on our walk yesterday, and you brought it up. What is the first thing that you really want to do once you're most looking forward to once we're out of COVID jail? Mm-hmm. So I thought we got so many heavy topics today. Let's lighten it up, and we'll.
Also, do you notice I'm wearing green?
Oh,
For the game.
it looks dark, but yes. Green.
Go green.
Oh, go green. Go green.
Oh, right.
Is it game tonight?
You guys hear me? I get the feeling no one can hear
We
me.
can't hear you barely.
You
I
are
hear echo
you're
constantly.
phasing out.
I hear echo.
So I talked to Ray yesterday, Riri. He's my daily consultant. He and I are besties. He thinks that it's your service, your internet service. You know
Right.
how
Uh huh.
has he
No,
talked to you about
it's
that?
not. No,
You have Comcast?
I think
What do you
maybe
have?
it's Comcast.
I love Comcast.
I know, but we spend hundreds of dollars to put a booster on our computer
Yeah.
a few months
Oh.
ago because of me working from home. We have
Uh-huh.
modified many things here to make this right. No, that's not the answer. So
But even yesterday, Marie, as you were talking when your stream was good, you were still clicking. There was
You're
still like a popping in your in your, and it wasn't a pop; it was a digital pop.
Yeah. So that's what I brought to his attention was I called you clicky. And he said that's internet. That's the quality of the internet. Now yesterday,
other than putting a rocket booster on my internet,
Right.
I don't
What
know
can you do?
do. So that's I mean, I have no idea what we can do about that. So I mean, literally we spent hundreds of dollars, Ann, so that I could work from home here in our computer system. So
so yesterday my kids had to come here and work because did you see that Huawei outage?
No.
There was a huge Huawei outage and it affected people all over Metro Detroit. Many on your side of town, Riri.
I have Huawei. I
don't have Huawei. But my point is, I mean, who knows with this internet, the quality of it, even though we're paying a fortune.
There's so many people on it. And this guy explained to me that because I started to get 1 gig, you can get it there are so many people. He explained it like if you're in an apartment and everybody's taking a shower at the same time, all the hot water is going through. You may not get as much as you normally would at other times. It's so many people working from home and so many devices within one home on that it just, by the time it gets to where you want it to go, it's weak.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what it is.
I'm doubling down here. My AT&T service was so bad at the outset of this when I was working from home that I had Comcast come in. I called up our friend
Michelle
Gilbert.
Spectacular.
And I got a business line from Comcast.
9945.
Did it help?
Well, it did until about 3 weeks ago. A truck hit a Comcast substation, totally wiped us out.
Oh, no.
But I had AT&T as a backup.
Okay.
At least I had a backup.
Oh, wow.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith
A
Show.
lot.
Here's Guy Gordon.
So how many times have you heard this exchange? How you doing, man? Oh, I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream. Well, here's a question for you. Are you living the American dream, or are you on the path to living the American dream? And it kind of comes down to how we define what that is. But when the Los Angeles Times and a group called Reality Check Insights, and they've done this survey for a few years, asked this, they found that 87% of one group said, yeah, I mean, it was a huge division. Those living the American dream, 46%, 19, and 24. Those saying that were 46% were married Americans. You were twice as likely to be, quote, living the dream if you were married than if you were single. And when you talk to those folks that are both living it and on the path, it's 87. This is really kind of encouraging. 87% say, I'm either living it or I'm on the path. And I think where you go from the path to living it is when your kids leave the house. Well, and not because it's a bad thing, but just because you have more disposable income to do that traveling or to have that freedom that you want to have. So what do you think about that? Do you think that being married is that much of a powerful influencer on whether or not you're living the dream?
I think people think it is.
Really?
I don't think there's really an American dream.
Really?
Deep,
okay.
deep.
Oh, let's get on the couch, Dana.
I think it's what we think it is. But for me, there really is no American dream and you can't have it all too. You know how they say you can have it all. No, you can't. So.
Well, that doesn't mean that there aren't some things that are uniquely, I don't know, that I think that we might have a much higher rate of here that we consider the American dream. Owning your own home, being able to afford a car. I think we tend to view it through the standard of living prism, right? But also it's about freedoms. And I mean, we heard this from our listeners when we were kind of talking this off air to our Facebook friends on, I guess it was Monday or Tuesday. And they said, as long as I have the freedom to do what I want to do, then I'm living the American dream. So, I mean, you say you don't define it that way. How would you define the American dream, and why don't you think that you've...
I don't define the American dream by material things. Like you said, freedom, that's not a material thing. I just think if you're happy, if you're successful, if you try to be a good person, nobody's perfect, obviously. But as we see in that movie, as Nomadland, to them, That's the American dream, not having too much, having freedom, not having anybody tell you what to do.
Interesting.
I just think we can't have a broad thing saying what the American dream is because everybody thinks it's different. I guess that's the point of it.
Yeah. And do you think that marriage and Marie, I mean, we're all fortunately in very strong, wonderful marriages. But I don't know. I don't know if single people would feel slighted by this or why single people wouldn't feel that they're living the American dream, unless it might be because, having two incomes does give you a measure of freedom and prosperity that you might not have otherwise. And
what do you think, Ree? I'm not. I kind of agree with Dana. It seems like everybody has a different idea of what it is.
Yeah, and I know a lot of single people who are living the American dream and perfectly happy being single. I think that, it just is not about the material stuff, just like Dana said, for a lot of people. It's this personal success meter that you have inside of yourself. And satisfaction meter, success meter, whatever.
Peace, to have some peace.
Yes.
They did find that, the level of well-being did increase with kids. But in terms of, and I think it gets back to the idea that you can travel, you have the freedom, you're not so tied down when you have kids. The financial obligations obviously are reduced once the kids leave the house. That is part of the equation as well. Mark, who's on Facebook with us, says also depends on who you surround yourself with. And I think that's right. If you have a really solid friend network, that probably, so, it also ties into what the American dream and just regular well-being, right. And whether that works. Also, we were having this discussion on our walk yesterday. It was a question that Ann posed to me. When we get out of COVID jail, when there are no more restrictions or fears about travel or things like that, What's one of the first things you're really looking forward to doing?
For
Cabo.
me, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm with Dana. I'll probably be with Dana.
I'm going on vacation.
I'm going to Cabo or someplace like Cabo.
Right.
I want to go. I want to travel.
Yes.
It sounds so nice.
I just want to have my family over for dinner.
I knew Marie was going to say that.
Well, we've continued to do that because all of our family members were working from home. So it was pretty, we weren't violating, and I wasn't going to obey some of that silly edict anyway. But, and we've been able to, maintain life COVID-free as far as we know. But
I'm talking about more of extended family,
yeah,
Marie's
it's
talking about her big Italian family.
having our friends over.
Yeah.
Also, just hugging a very good friend.
Hugging is a big one.
I'm tired of the elbow bumps.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, and I was discussing it with Mike Parsons yesterday. Laura, Mike, and I have a great time on our show, but we've been extended now for several months. I can't wait to do a pub crawl or a escape room thing with them, or just to go bowling or to a Tiger game, just to be in our work unit to go out with our team.
Yeah, that's a great one too.
Yeah, I agree. I've actually missed seeing everybody in person.
Well, and just the conversations that you and I have, and I annoy you by, by shuttling down to the newsroom and hanging out. I miss those conversations. You and I end up doing it at Marie anyway on by texting back and forth. And Ron says, giving a handshake. Amen. Ted Petrowski, getting the entire family together to celebrate a holiday. All of it. So we shall see. And we've got some thoughts. We'll continue the conversation about living the American dream online when we come back. Much more, including the showdown looming between the governor and legislators in Lansing. Big bill passed yesterday. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's check in with Dana. WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Lions Clubs International.
We are Lions. We bring hope where it's needed. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. Visit lionsclubs.org to learn more.
Still watching that vehicle fire 94 westbound between Range Road and Gratiot. That's in Port Huron. It's closed due to that vehicle fire. You can take Range Road instead. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Primetime Testing Laboratory. Interior trim, low floors, instrument panels, visors, Steering wheel seating, if it's in the car, Primetime tests it. They are the automotive industry's most accurate result reporting and guaranteed on-time delivery for your next automotive project. Get a free quote at primetimetestinglab.com. That's primetimetestinglab.com. Well, back to normal today. Starting off cloudy skies, not too bad, 30 degrees, but only a high of 35 today. Some peaks of sunshine this afternoon tonight. Clear skies, your low 20. So on Friday, sunshine, a few afternoon clouds, a high of 43. And then on Saturday, 40 and Sunday, 42. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in about 3 minutes.
Visit consumersenergy.com/cold weather for a wide range of tips to.
You see, Lori says she wants to celebrate a holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that
Well,
one too.
what's next? St. Patty's Day?
Patty's Day. Did you
Just
see, Guy? Lori says she wants to celebrate a holiday. Yeah, now, that's a good question, though, on St. Pat's Day, Dana.
Yeah.
So will people be out and about?
Yes. People are going to be out. Let's see if I can see what the temperature is going to be. That matters too. And then, okay, the 4 states that are say you can't don't have to wear a mask anymore, just in time for
Party
St. Patty's Day.
So 50% capacity, right, at restaurants and bars. So and a lot of people usually on St. Patrick's Day like to be outside the bar. So there'll be a fair amount.
Might
There
be
might be a
warm.
fair amount of that.
Oh, I think you're going to see a lot of big tents going up.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you're right. Wow. That'll be interesting to watch. And then
What are we doing? Are we doing our normal big?
We're
Is it going to be
doing
virtual?
Virtual St. Pat's Day.
Okay.
So, and we're doing a normal show virtually, but it'll be all St. Pat's, but it's not till 10. It's just our 5:30 till 9.
It worked out pretty good last year, right?
Yes, it did. It so hopefully this is the last virtual of that, and then we'll be ready to roll. So.
Sandra Ali had an interesting piece on yesterday about the number of people who haven't dated in a year.
Yeah.
I know that
Right.
hard.
It's really hard to do because I mean there's not too many places to go.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine how many weddings there's going to be in 2022?
Right. Almost every day, probably. Just whenever I can get me in, maybe. I don't know.
Well, my youngest is getting married, and they wanted to wait till the COVID situation was over. So we started calling around just because I thought a lot of people are doing that, and there were very few dates left in 2022.
Right. So do you just take one of those, or do you stick with your date?
Well, she wanted 2022, so we took a date then. But I've heard of a ton of weddings. And if people start dating again, there's going to be even more weddings.
But why wait? This has been my thing. Is the wedding that doggone important? The marriage is much more important than the wedding.
Well,
Get on with it.
It's the American dream.
I have a son.
See, you have it in your mind what you think it should be.
I know.
And so,
you know what? I have a son who didn't wait. So he got married. We were planning a big wedding for him and his beautiful bride, and they did not want to wait. And so
they're happy they didn't wait.
They had a teeny tiny little wedding, and they are thrilled. They, like Guy points out, he had absolutely no interest in waiting. He was kind of like, "Are you kidding?"
Right.
Going to your point, Dana, of everybody's got a different idea. So there was no even discussion with him. He's like,
"Yeah, we're doing this."
Waiting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. Some people, everybody's got a different idea.
Yeah.
Danielle weighed in, our wonderful board operator weighed in and said, someone who isn't married, I think you are closer to the American dream than I.
But everybody who's single wants to be married. Everybody who's married and want to be single. Sure, you want to be tall. If it's like whatever. It's like just pick whatever. You want to be the opposite, and then you want to be the opposite. But she said her brother's getting married in June up north at their cottage with 30 people. That'd be nice. They've waited 9 years.
That'll be super.
Yeah.
My youngest son got married in 2019. I mean, we dodged the bullet there
Right on
because
time.
they were thinking a little bit about extending it, having a longer engagement. We were like, but of course, Gail and I, we married after knowing each other 9 months. We were only engaged, I think, 7 or 8 weeks.
Wow.
I bought a house before I got engaged. And, that was funny. Gail went to her dad and she said, "Dad, we bought a house." And he said, "Really? Who's we?"
Right. Right.
Oh, got to get that ring.
And then the first thing you think, which is not good, but you're not pregnant, are you? No.
Well,
Uh-oh.
listen,
I let it out.
we actually had someone in our inner circle that was telling her friends that Whitson was from Gail's first marriage, which was like, in what universe? Can you not do math? It was pretty funny. Because we got married in 86. Whitson didn't come along until 88. It's like,
Well, oh, gosh. Wow, that's bad. I mean, I thought I was bad at math.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. That's very funny. We did not date very long either before we got married.
Yeah.
Yeah, very similar to God.
You know, right?
Well, I got married later, older. So
What,
maybe
you were
that
all
has
of what,
something.
20?
27.
I got to
Oh,
tell you, Dana, I
okay.
used to love when I was single and first in town, when Ann Thomas would show up at a story and
You
I
was
could
like-
flirt with her. That was really,
That was something.
that was tall cotton.
Annie was sought after, huh?
Isn't that funny?
She's
how,
holding out. She's holding out.
Isn't that funny how many years Guy and I have worked together?
Yes,
oh my
that
gosh,
is something. How
unbelievable.
time
Oh,
goes.
good. A double murder. I wonder if Ann's going to be there.
Oh, God. You are wrong. You're wrong for that.
You know who else I used to hang out with? And Guy knows this because we'd be on the same stories together.
Uh-oh, you froze, Annie.
Well, that's a suspenseful.
Right.
What a tease.
Oh, wow. Right on time.
I
You
used to
froze,
hang-
Annie. You
I used
froze.
to hang out with Dan Dickerson.
Oh,
So
Daddy's so sweet.
So Dana used to be on the street with us too.
Yep.
Really?
Yep, we were all there at the same time for different places.
I did not
different
know he
places.
was a reporter like that.
Yep, but here's the funny part of the story: we'd all work together,
That's good, yeah.
so
You
we'd all
do
figure
work
out
together.
like I'd have facts for Guy,
Right,
and Jen
exactly.
would have facts
Better
for
that
me.
way.
Yeah, and when the story was dangerous, we would watch each other's back.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
The other thing that was important too is, especially in a court case, if you would have to leave to go file a report or go live,
Right.
at least I could cover for you and say, okay, here's what you missed.
Yep.
Right.
And there was a lot more of that. I was at a scene once where a guy attacked a Channel 4 cameraman.
Mm-hmm.
We got it on tape so they could charge the guy.
Yeah.
My boss actually busted my chops for dubbing it off and giving it to Channel 4. And I probably should have asked him first. But, it's like,
Was the right thing to do.
I said, really? You don't want to give them the ability to charge this guy?
Yeah.
We got to help each other. I mean, that's sometimes how competitive things got
Yeah,
between us
yeah.
and 2 and 4. It was silly.
Yeah.
When I was on the street, I used to be the one that take everybody on the bathroom run. Like if we were at a plane
A
crash,
bathroom run.
because my truck was smaller, than the big TV trucks. So everybody pile in, and I'd find the bathroom, and we'd all go together.
Yep. We used to do that too.
3 times daily. Ask
Did you
your
get
smart
Ronald-
Ronald,
glasses, Marie?
Ronald on Facebook says he proposed on his first date with his wife, and that was 53 years ago. Wow.
The Paul W. Smith Show, News Talk 760 WJR. Here's special guest host, Guy Gordon.
Good morning, everybody. We're back in the freezing temperatures again, but look ahead to next week, and they're talking possibly temperatures in the 60s. So spring is teasing us once again. That's what March is all about. That's a pure Michigan March, isn't it?
Yes, totally.
Joined by Dana Clark, Marie Osborne, Ann Thomas, Danielle Mason, back of the station, riding the dials. And you guys, you remember the old Westerns where there's always an old geezer that runs into the sheriff's office who says, "There's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a big showdown."
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm the old geezer today telling you that right now up in Lansing, there's going to be a big showdown, and it's going to be a doozy. And that is because the Republicans yesterday passed a $4.2 billion coronavirus relief plan, without first negotiating it with Governor Whitmer. These negotiations that were supposed to be going on didn't happen. And among other things, it will link $840 million in federal school funding to the governor signing a measure that will say, I'm going to give up my epidemic control powers to local health departments, and they can be the ones to determine whether schools close or whether they don't. So in other words, she couldn't do the kind of ban that we saw back in November, shutting down schools. They also have a provision in there, and this ties $347 million in funds to requiring legislative approval to lengthen any virus-related orders beyond 28 days, to basically enforce what the Emergency Powers Act says, which she has kind of shifted to the health department. So do you think she's going to veto this bill to protect her powers? Or do you think she can veto parts and pass others? Because if she does, she's going to be pushing away over about $1.2 billion in funding for schools and other things.
Question for the audience. When you have a pandemic and a health crisis, how can you have local control? How does local control work when everybody is doing something different and the disease continues to spread? And I mean back when things were really bad.
Yeah,
$1 million question. Also, she has the ability to veto parts of this bill, so she does have the ability to accept some of it. But my thinking is like you, Guy. I don't think she's going to take any of it.
I think she's going to dump the whole thing. And the problem is that you know, we just get back to the same old blame game in Lansing, with one side saying, well, they're leaving money on the table. They're going to leave money on the table, federal money, as if that's such a bad thing. I mean, I don't think you have to spend every dollar every one of my federal tax dollars that comes back from D.C. But it is now about the power grab, the power fight, and control, rather than about getting this money to people who need it here in the state of Michigan, including schools that are trying to find a way to get back into class or trying to find a way to make sure they can finish the year strongly. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what she is going to do. The House Minority Leader Donna Lisinski told the Detroit News this. She says GOP lawmakers are literally kneecapping Michigan's recovery by not dispersing all $5 billion in federal relief now. So they also are holding back some money. But on the legislative side, they're saying we've been ignored. We have had our oversight powers ignored and circumvented. The law says, the Emergency Powers Act says, you've got to come back and must get legislative reauthorization for the pandemic orders and for the extension of the declaration of emergency. You need to do that, and you're not. So what leverage do they have, if not the power of the purse?
Yeah, but Ann still makes a good point. In the case of this extraordinary thing that happened, this pandemic, I mean, again, we've never been here before. And do we want 100 people in charge, or do you want one person an elected official making the decision?
Well, I would say this. It's just let me play the devil's advocate there, because my horns are already so large. The problem is, at the outset of the pandemic, Marie, I think you're right. I think you need broad emergency powers, and the law allows for that. But it says, after 28 days, we should have a plan for this emergency, and it needs to be a plan based on consensus, not on one branch of the government issuing edicts. And I would submit that I think local health departments are in the best circumstances for knowing what is best for that locale. They know what the infection rate is. They know how many people they have in low income or more vulnerable situations.
Okay, let me bring this point up again, devil's advocate here. Do you remember back at the start when there were questions about, well, why are they closing down the UP, for heaven's sakes? There's no cases of it up there. And you made the, I remember often on your show where you'd say, look, if people travel, if some of us have homes up north, we're just going to say, you know what, I'm leaving, I'm going up north. So that impacts that.
And I'm taking the bug with me. I'm taking the virus.
Right.
So that impacts that health department. So do we not want one person overseeing all of the health departments and all of what they're doing? Or do we want the Ingham County Health Department doing what they think is right, and the Bay City Health Department doing what the Bay
At
County
least during the crisis, the bad time.
stage.
We should point out, though, there are not 88 different health departments. In many rural areas, you have co-ops where you've got 7 counties with one health department. So it isn't, but you know what? Remember though, Marie, she said that she was going to rule this by region. Remember, we're still divided into regions on the governor's page, but we've never had separate. We have a little bit where we said, well, the folks in northern Michigan opened their restaurants first. Okay, but then that kind of got abandoned because then you had restaurant envy. So it's going to be, as I said. Gabby Hayes has entered the sheriff's office and has proclaimed that there's going to be a showdown. The Clantons and the Earps are at war up in Lansing, and it ain't going to be pretty. We'll be back with more on the Paul W. Smith Show. When we return, as of tomorrow, there can be visitations at state nursing homes. What does that mean? What will the rules be? And are they really that clear cut? Some folks are saying it's kind of confusing. We'll get into that all ahead on the Paul W. Smith Show. Guy Gordon sitting in on your Thursday morning. Let's check in with Dana, WJR Traffic first.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Just looking at now a 30-minute delay for trucks, of course, across the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. In Port Huron, we have a closure due to a vehicle fire. 94 westbound is shut down between Range Road and Gratiot. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel.
Overcast with more clear sky to the southwest as we head through this morning. Most of us just partial clouds and sunshine this afternoon. 36. Overnight tonight, a colder 20 degrees. Some of the suburbs down at...
And where did you find Dave? Herbal. And is it Herbal or Herbel?
Well, we have to ask Danielle to give us that.
Okay.
I found him through a woman with this organization before the governor's decision to reopen the nursing homes.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the groups that was feeling very, very concerned and upset about how long it's taken to get these nursing homes back up and operating. So they kept asking me, can we please come on and talk about, the fact that we don't like this. And to be brutally honest, it's so darn busy. I never got to it.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, this would be a nice opportunity to let them have their say about A, how difficult it's been, but B, in all practicality, how are you going to do this?
We've tried to cover the whole nursing home thing. That's been one of our top priorities because it seemed to really resonate with listeners, but also it was just one of those things that just seemed so unnecessary that once they got the PPE and got control, I just kept hearing from nursing home operators when we reached out saying, we can do this. And, part of what they just think that the governor was so gun shy after the criticism for having put COVID patients back into nursing homes, which, by the way, that happened quite rarely. And when it did happen, it didn't seem to affect, according to that U of M study that you saw, we covered that maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah.
That showed that it didn't affect mortality rates at all. It may have happened on an individual basis, but it wasn't like it was a wholesale.
This includes, like my parents live in a senior living facility, right? So this includes that too. The senior residents, that's all part of this too, right?
This is the thing, the classifications that are there. There are the congregate care facilities, long-term care facilities, assisted living. It's now sliced in different ways, and they
kind of senior living, like just seniors who are not unwell but have a nice senior
senior community, right? Well, they've locked it down with the same broad brush, the same thing that would affect a senior assisted living or even non-assisted living.
Yeah,
it's the same.
Right, because like in my parents' case, they live in a little villa outside of the facility. You know how some of those facilities have individual places? So they have not had the exact same rules, but some of their friends in the building haven't seen their kids for over a year. So I can go to my parents' little place without any trouble, but you know what I'm saying? So it is very, it's definitely all over the place. And then going back to your point, aren't we still a little bit concerned about the nursing home workers who refuse to get vaccinated? And at some point, are they going to be told, in order to work here, you have to be vaccinated? Is that a group that's going to be forced to be vaccinated?
So there's a school of thought that says if you have the majority of your residents vaccinated, that having the staff completely vaccinated is less of a priority.
Okay.
I still think, since we don't know if you can transmit the virus after you've been vaccinated.
Dana says.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
So as of Friday, the long-awaited visitations can once again happen in state nursing homes, and it will be a glorious day. I don't know if you've heard on my show, perhaps, some of the testimony that we've been hearing up in Lansing on different oversight committees from those that both run nursing homes and have loved ones in them. It is some heartbreaking testimony and a tale of isolation and also decline amongst our seniors, and also profound depression on the part of nursing home workers who are watching this happen to patients that they care for. Dave Herbel is the CEO at Leading Age Michigan, and he has been looking over this new residential care visitation order that was put out and can tell us what the expectations are. Dave, good of you to join us.
Good morning, Guy, and thank you for having me this morning.
So just give me a sense of the of anticipation and what you've been hearing from the families of loved ones since this announcement. I would have to imagine that your phones are puddles of plastic by now.
That's true, and I certainly would like to start by thanking Director Hertel of MDHHS, who's moved very quickly after taking over for Dr. Gordon to try to get some of these the conflicts with the federal guidance resolved. But what we're hearing from our members and from families, to be quite honest, is that the visitation restrictions that have been modified really don't go far enough yet. You know, the families and the seniors really want to be able to determine their own risk levels at which they're willing to live with in order to be able to have a hug or to, share a kiss among family members. We've heard a couple stories of folks who have said, quite honestly, it's been more complicated going to see mom and watching her sob when we're still 6 feet apart and we can't get that intimate touch. And it's just been challenging and remains so.
So tell me what is in this order that you believe doesn't go far enough. I mean, my understanding is if you get a test, if you put on PPE, you can go in and see your loved one. Is there a no contact rule, or what is it that makes you think that this won't be the kind of supportive visitation that we hope it will be?
Yes, it still precludes folks from having personal contact. There's the 6 feet social distancing that occurs, and there's specific timelines at which folks can have visitation. So there are those kinds of limits. But one of the restrictions that, as a religious-based organization, one of the ones that we are really concerned about is that someone who's COVID positive and at the end of life still cannot have visitation. And from our perspective, many of the seniors are certainly people of faith, and that sort of restriction not only precludes them from being with their family members as they pass on, but it also restricts them from last rites, atonement, or even any other religious aspect that they want to follow.
And you would submit that even though there might be a risk of transmission, that should be a risk that the visiting family member should be able to accept, not precluded from accepting.
Exactly. We started a campaign some weeks ago called Give Seniors a Say, and it was directly related to trying to put the voice of the senior back into the discussion so that they can make these determinations themselves. As you know, they've lived their lives and they've probably faced many more challenges, much greater than COVID. But we think they should have the ability at this stage of their life to say, again, what risk tolerance they're willing to work with.
So for those of us that may be going back to the nursing home, assisted living facility to see mom and dad or grandma and grandpa for the first time in maybe a year, or maybe the first time in several months, what do we need to know? What's going to be required of us?
What I think folks will need to know is that all of the appointments need to be scheduled. And if it's a licensed facility, you'll be required to have a negative COVID test within the last 72 hours. If it's an unlicensed facility, and many assisted living facilities in Michigan are unlicensed, those organizations are only encouraged to have testing. But we certainly think that with the availability of point-of-care testing and other things, wanting to keep staff safe, residents safe, family members safe, go get the test. It's a harmless process, and you need to be negative within the last 72 hours.
The other thing, and you're talking to a guy who, right after I'm done with this show, I'm going to be getting on a plane with my family, and we're going down to see my dad, who is not in good shape down at a long-term care facility in Florida. And I've told the kids, you haven't seen him in a while. You got to manage your expectations here that he's not going to be the same guy that you saw a year ago or 6 months ago. I would imagine that's something that we need to caution people about too, is that even on Zoom calls, some of those little symptoms of decline you might not have noticed, and you may be shocked by them once you reconnect with this person you've loved so much.
Very much so. And for your listening audience and your children, Guy, I'd suggest if you want some real life examples of that, go to our Give Seniors a Say website. We've done a number of video interviews there with families, residents, and staff, and you can actually see some of the experiences that families have had. There's one very powerful interview where a woman holds up a photo of her mother a year ago and a photo of her mother a few days ago, and you can see the change in their face and in their eyes. And I would just suggest that, that's a great way to kind of prepare yourself if you're at all concerned about how things may be different when you visit.
Well, and also talk to the professionals that have been caring for your loved one, because they have witnessed the changes, sometimes very subtle, and at least might be able to give you a heads up. And I saw that testimony. If it's the same person I think you're referring to, I think one of your people testified up in Lansing, and I saw that. And I got to say, that testimony left me in tears when you heard these people talk about their loved ones. How do you really think that this no contact thing is going to be enforced? I got to tell you, God help the person that tries to get between me and my father in hospice, because I'm going to be hugging him.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of the problem, is that Michigan's guidance has been much more restrictive than the federal guidance. And so that's what we've been working with the department to try to correct. The federal guidance that was published 5-6 months ago does not have the same sort of restrictions that Michigan does.
Well, which has been the question that I've been begging for a while now. The federal requirements were more lenient. Her own COVID-19 preparedness task force recommendations were more lenient. Licensing and regulation department visitation regulations were more lenient, and yet she ignored all three of them. Or I should say, her health department ignored all three of them.
Yeah, correct. And I think that's probably the appropriate place to lay that decision. We know that the epidemiologists inside the department have taken a very structured view of everything related to Michigan's performance around protecting its seniors in long-term care facilities. And we've been working hard for over a year now to try to get some flexibility, and that's why we're so thrilled to see this as a first step in trying to move toward more open visitation for our seniors.
Dave, we hope it goes smoothly. We hope it's joyous. We hope it's restorative. We hope it's healing. We hope it's everything that we hoped it would be as we re-engage with our loved ones. Do take care.
Thank you, Guy.
You're on the Paul W. Smith Show here on WJR. Guy Gordon sitting in on your Thursday afternoon. When we come back, an interesting bill being debated in Washington that would dramatically open accessibility to voting, but would it also reduce security? We'll get into that next on the Paul W. Smith Show, right after we check in with Dana Clark and hear from Marie Osborne. Here's Dana.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If you're looking to hire, think of Indeed as your GPS. With great tools like Instant Match and over 135 skill tests, Indeed helps you navigate the hiring process from start to finish. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit.
Well, still watching that vehicle fire, Guy. It's along 94 westbound between Range Road and Gratiot. Closed there due to that fire. That's in Port Huron. Looking at a 30-minute delay along the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel. Back to normal today, a high of 35, cloudy skies this morning, peaks of sunshine this afternoon. Tonight, clear skies, your low 20. For Friday, sunshine despite a few afternoon clouds, a high of 43. On the weekend, we remain in the lower 40s. Once again, cloudy skies, 30 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 2 minutes.
Our energy grid. It powers the present and fuels the future. That's why...
That's just the saddest thing to listen to him talk. It's like, oh man, that is really sad. So yeah, good idea to talk to Marie about that. And then you could even say, hey, Marie, let's open the phone lines. I'll see if she'll go on StreamYard.
Oh, okay. That'd be great. You know what? Honestly, her audio is better if she doesn't.
Oh, leave her off?
Leave her off.
Okay.
Yeah, pump her through the other way. That'll be fine.
Okay. Let's tell her that. Hang on. Daniel, you probably heard us say that too.
What's that?
We're going to keep Marie. I'm just talking to Danielle.
Okay.
Danielle, we're going to keep Marie on access because there's that little clicky click, 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 click on StreamYard. And then let's see what happens here. Okay. So you're getting, you're talking, yeah. So won't it be better in Florida too, Guy? Won't it be less restrictive? Like they may not have any restrictions.
No. We still have to take a test. We still will be covered in face shields and masks.
The whole family has to get tested, like a rapid test?
Yep.
At the nursing home?
We're going to get off the plane and go right to the nursing home and get a rapid test so that we can be clear to see them for the rest of the week.
So wait, at the nursing home they give out the rapid test?
The nursing home is doing all the testing on their own. And we don't bring our own PPE. They provide all of it. They have very strict PPE stuff that they want used. So, no bandanas type thing. They want to. They just don't want it to be an issue. So they're going to provide. I think they've got KN95 masks. My mom had a face shield. I think she's wearing goggles now. She's been going in and feeding Dad.
So she has to do that with Dad? And that's because if a visitor were to come in and give him COVID, then he could give COVID to the other residents and the workers?
Right. In spite of the fact that, I think that early on, Florida was a little bit better. They narrowed the focus Well, first of all, one of the first things they did, they locked down the nursing homes before they locked down anything else. DeSantis and DeSantis got a lot of credit for that, so they had lower death rates. But I mean, you've seen the U of M study that was there that showed
we had the research around
the real source of infection in the nursing homes was staff bringing it in, a lack of PPE, that the hubs where these COVID positive patients were being put actually had significantly lower mortality rates than the general nursing home population. And we had nursing homes in this state that had no COVID at all. That I think 1/3 of them had no COVID at all early on because those directors got tons of PPE very early. They were righteous about no visitation, and they so often they have a lot of temp staff at nursing homes. So you have people coming in and out that would also be at other nursing homes. The successful nursing homes ended that. They had their permanent staff. The permanent staff were the only ones allowed in, and they had to be very strict about their own personal behavior, and it worked.
Oh, yeah. In the meantime, though, the residents are depressed. Not able to.
No question. But early on, when it really was a wildfire, that was the difference between success or failure in terms of keeping it out of the nursing homes. And until we understood how the virus was transmitted and what was going on. But there's that lawsuit, and I can't remember which, I think it's a nursing home in Lapeer County, where the nursing home director actually told her nursing staff, you will not wear a mask in this facility because it frightens our residents. She's no longer with that nursing home, and she is named as a defendant in a really eye-opening lawsuit. When you look at the claims that are made in that lawsuit, and again, they have to be proven in court, but they had affidavits from nursing home workers that said, no, we knew that masks would work, and they wouldn't allow us to wear them.
Wow, that's crazy. I wonder what percentage of nursing home residents, if you did a poll, would say, you know what? I don't care. I want to see my family. I've only got X amount of years. I don't care.
Yeah.
You got to let me see. It'd just be interesting because I know some people that are, that are a younger senior might say, no, I'm gonna do what I need to do. I want to live a long life and I feel great and I'm gonna follow the guidelines. But I bet you there's a percentage that are up in, a little bit older, like you're talking about, that would say, I've got cancer. Are you kidding? I got to hug my daughter.
But then you almost need to put them in a different facility because once that happens, how do you control it?
Right.
And there were some really hard questions asked about whether or not you needed to have separate HVAC systems. What level of filtering did you need to have? How much outside air do you need to bring in on a regular basis? And how quickly do you do? And the same conversation they're having with restaurants now.
Yeah. Well, we were teasing in my own family about my mom and dad saying that, years ago, they were trying to keep track of what we were doing when we were teenagers, and they were worried about what we were up to. Well, we found ourselves trying to keep track of them during COVID and worrying about what they were up to because they kind of were like, are you kidding? We absolutely need to get out, and we need to see people, and we need to hug the kids and hug the grandkids. And, it was a whole conversation. And I'm sure we're not the only family that had that conversation.
Well,
it was actually kind of funny.
I mean, we're dealing with that right now. My oldest boy has young children. My daughter has a baby. All of them are going to want to hug George.
See DraftKings.com.
But my son, the oldest boy, is like, we have been in lockdown in California big time because it's a wildfire there.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
So late yesterday, H.R. 1 passed the House 220 to 210 with only one Democrat crossing the line and opposing it with Republicans. H.R. 1 is a big voter access, voting rights, voter reform bill. And it's interesting, Marie, nowhere have I seen the lines between the parties right now more clearly defined than in the debate over this bill.
You're absolutely right about that. It's pretty clear how everyone stands on this.
Democrats are are singing the praises of access, especially for minority voters, those in urban areas that may have difficulty getting to the polls because of transportation issues. Republicans are saying, folks, access is fine, but we can't sacrifice security in the name of greater access. And that really is where the battle lines are being drawn. This bill faces an uncertain future in the Senate where they've got the 50-50 split. But some of the things, they don't necessarily, Marie, affect Michigan that much because this is something that we've already done.
Right.
Widespread mail-in voting. We've already got that because we voted no excuses absentee voting in back in 2018. Creation of a commission to draw voting districts in each state to end gerrymandering. We're already down the road in that process here in Michigan, though God knows it'd be nice if we had some census data to work with. But what is interesting about this, while we've done that and we did it based on the vote of the people, the federal government and Democrats in Congress are saying, we want to have these edicts for all states, and you don't necessarily get a vote. We're going to tell you what to do. And I think that's a pretty strong states' rights issue.
And I think that's where they may have some leeway on that, because that would be pretty tough, actually, don't you think, to implement that nationally? And also, on the other side, though, the fact that Michigan did successfully, you talked to Jocelyn Benson yesterday talking about the security of the vote this past November. So wouldn't there be a close look at the states who did do it right and how it worked? And maybe that could change somebody's mind the other way.
Well, it's exactly. And I mean, the one thing that I think is particularly noteworthy about H.R. 1 is I don't see anything in this bill at all talking about securing the vote. It's all about, some good campaign finance reforms in here that I think are worth looking at. But here's the other thing. It would void state voter identification requirements. So states that now ask you to show ID before you vote in person would be told you can't do that. And those that require some form of identification before you get an absentee ballot, that would be banned as well. Well, how does that make our vote more secure? And yes, you may say that it's hard for folks in urban areas. Not everybody has a driver's license. Not everybody carries an ID, especially in areas where there's heavy mass transit and people don't have cars. They may not have a driver's license. Elderly people that have had their driving privileges either taken away or they forfeited them, they may not have identification, but they can still get a state ID card. Is it really that hard to ask someone to provide identification before they vote? I think it's a legit question.
And in the city of Detroit, if I'm not mistaken, Mayor Duggan a few years ago instituted that the ID card, right, for all Detroiters, that everybody has some form of ID with their picture on it. Also, one of the things that bothers me about this bill too is that it's going to be a national system for automatic voter registration. So a national system for automatic voter registration. And I just wonder how unwieldy that could possibly become.
Well, and my question would be, Marie, why isn't there a national system for voter roll purging? Why isn't that a companion part of this that says, yes, okay, we're going to have national voting registration, but when someone dies, there's going to be a national database that tells us that so that we can take them off the rolls.
Oh. Yeah, there's,
it's what's missing in this bill that's just as important as what's in it. The other thing is it would allow the absentee ballot, if it's postmarked the day of the election, let's say it's November 5th. So if there's a November 5th postmarked, it can still be counted on November 15th.
Yeah.
So we've got this now 10 days of uncertainty in close races that may be created. Now, hopefully the mail will get its act together and we won't have that delay, that 2-week delay that we've seen in some cases. But there are questions about that. Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, had his concerns about this. Cut one, Danielle.
You got a pandemic in America. They don't think it's important to put people back to work, back to school, or back to health. They think the number one thing needs to do is protect them as a politician to stay in office and take your taxpayers' money to fund their campaigns.
Now, what he's saying is if you look at these provisions, they're all designed to boost turnout in urban areas where we know there's a higher concentration of Democrat voters. And he may not be wrong. I would also argue, though, that the no excuses absentee voting, I saw a lot of Republican seniors and others using that this time around. In fact, the Trump administration was really successful in getting out the absentee voters. He had one more complaint, and I want you to hear it before we go to break. Cut 2, please, Danielle.
They would take the Federal Election Commission, which is made up of an equal number of Republicans and Democrats, and then now give the Democrats the advantage. So they can go in and fine only the Republicans. They are so concerned about losing their majority, they're trying to consolidate this power. That's exactly what they're doing.
In other words, the watchdogs would no longer be bipartisan or not as bipartisan as it is now. You know what? Let's take your calls on this. What you think about H.R. 1. I'd love to get both sides represented if we can. 1-800-859-0957. 1-800-859-0WJR. Your calls next on the Paul W. Smith Show, right after we check in with Dana and find out what's happening on the roads.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Sometimes a hiring freeze happens because you can't find the right people. So follow the warming trend to Indeed. They have tools to help you find the quality candidates you need to help your business. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit.
Still seeing that vehicle fire in Port Huron. It's closed there, 94 westbound between Range Road and Gratiot. Traffic is stopped from now I-69. 30-minute delay for trucks across the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel.
Depends on your location this morning. Some areas got clouds to the west and southwest, a little more clear sky. I think we mix it.
So Dave Herbal is a good guest. He comes across on the air as a very thoughtful,
reasonable,
compassionate, reasonable man. I'm going to keep him.
Just the kind of guy you want taking care of your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy, I'm telling you, this Kevin Evans over at the Martha T. Berry facility. You know, he's not in like like an association. He's not. He's not 1 degree of separation removed. He is in the nursing home every day.
Oh, he'd be good too.
And so he gives you really good grassroots.
What they're dealing with.
Yeah. And Danielle, thank you for being on the ball when I called for those bites. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. And I'm sorry that I didn't tell you that I was going to saddle you with taking listener calls.
I did.
Did you? Okay, good. I keep, I'm still in my own zone here where I'm thinking that you've got a Mike Parsons or a Laura there to help.
No, Danielle.
Thanks, Danielle.
He's got it going on.
And Danielle, I'm so pleased that your test came back.
Yes.
So glad everybody's good.
Okay, so let's see if we get any calls. It's early, and we're not trained. This audience isn't trained. But if anybody on our
well, if you want to weigh in on this, that's fine as well.
Sure. The Facebook feed, the Facebook crowd, they're weighing in. If you guys want to call in, you can 1-800-859-0WJR. Usually we hear from Jeff. Jeff calls in the morning. Maria brings up the point that I'd like to say. Don't you have to have ID?
Well, you're asked for ID right now. I mean, I have to show my driver's license every time I go in to vote.
But let's say that you don't have a driver's license. You have to have some type of ID, don't you?
No. You can have your there's a separate system for that. You're put in a separate pot. And I don't know if it's a provisional ballot. It gets really technical. But you can still vote, but your ballot is set aside until they can verify your registration. And
but don't you have to have ID to register to vote?
Absolutely. But that's usually done. I mean, registration is usually done when you get your license.
Right. Yes, you do, Jane says. But in order
Glenn.
to get around in the United States these days, you have to have some kind of ID.
Well,
and if you just have
we're going through this with my father-in-law right now. His license was finally revoked.
Okay.
And we didn't renew it. And that's a real source of tension with him.
Oh, I know.
But he's going to be he wanted to fly down to Florida, and we just realized, holy Hannah, he doesn't have identification.
So what do you do in that? Like, what does an older senior do?
His son's my brother-in-law is going to rush and get him a passport.
Okay. But to get a passport, they're going to have to, well, they'd show a birth certificate.
They've got all that.
Yeah.
It's just that we forgot that, he hasn't been traveling. So
Right. Sure. No, I know. But I just think, yeah.
All great comments, guys. Call in, for goodness sake. 1-800-859-0957.
Yeah, see, I agree with Lori. It's absurd to say that an ID isn't necessary or obtainable. You need it for Social Security, everything. You always have to show your ID. They should be able to convert their drivers. Yeah, but Mark or Maria, what if they don't have a driver's license?
Yeah, there's still a legal state ID that you can get. You're at work? Tell your boss that we need your opinion on WJR. I'm sure he or she will understand.
Well, we can continue this conversation because I can ask you to explain some of it to me because this ID thing makes no sense.
So we got
Now
a caller
back
on
to
the
more
line,
of the
Daniel.
Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, we know it's early, Detroit, at 6:48 here on News Talk 760, but we invite you to call in, get your take on this bill, H.R. 1, that passed by merely 10 votes in the House, faces an uncertain future in the Senate, but it really delineates what the debate is going to be going forward about how we secure our elections and how we make sure that those states, not ours necessarily, but there are states, other states in the nation that are really raising the bar to vote. Democrats here have said, look, the right to vote is under attack. This is according to Representative Terry Sewell, a Democrat of Alabama. We know that our democracy works best when everyone can participate fully, but we also know that voter suppression is alive and well, and there are some debatable things being considered in red states. But Representative Andy Barr, Republican of Kentucky, weighs in as well, quoted in the Wall Street Journal. Election laws should make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. But this bill would not only make it easy to cheat, it would effectively make it legal to cheat. And that is the real question. And why aren't there more? Why wouldn't you, as you're lowering the bar to voting, why aren't you raising the bar for security reasons? Why don't you add in maybe state-of-the-art software that will be used for signature verification, or maybe higher standards for signature verification? And Ann, that's the real question here. It's what's absent from this bill that concerns me.
I agree with you. I think there's some real issues with this bill. I do think that we need to, I love that line, easier to vote. We need to make it easier to vote, but a lot harder to cheat. And
Right.
It would raise the confidence of Americans about our election system. And going to this ID situation, there's got to be a way to figure that out. You've got to have ID to vote. It would make people feel better.
No question. And it's not just about the technicalities of securing the election. It's about the perception of the security of the election.
Exactly.
That it's reassuring and it's a fail-safe, or at least a perceived fail-safe. Because we know IDs can be counterfeited. Here in Michigan, it's a little harder to counterfeit an ID, not if it's got a hologram and all the watermarks that are in it. But in other states, maybe not so much. Jane in Highland with some thoughts on this. Jane, good morning and welcome to the Paul W. Smith Show. She called in at 1-800-859-0957, and we encourage you to do the same. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning. How are you?
Excellent, thank you.
I wanted to say that my aunt, when she moved to Michigan, she had not driven since 1947. And when she moved here, she was required to get a Michigan state ID card. Mm-hmm. And she had to show that in place of her driver's license for everything. She was required to have it for voter registration. She was required to have it as an ID for checks. She was required to have it when she rented her apartment here. Michigan does issue those. And I think that it's important that, excuse me, for the voting, everyone should have some kind of an ID card like that. one of the things that I think the Democrats are really trying to push here, and I've heard them before, they want illegal aliens to be able to vote. And that's wrong. It's not their country. They're not an American citizen. They shouldn't be voting. But the Democrats taking the ID away and making it so easy, quote unquote, to vote is what's making it so easy to cheat.
Yeah, I don't know, Jane, if that would be considered a consensus Democrat viewpoint, but there's no question there are fringy progressives that think that that is something that we ought to do. They're the same ones that think that undocumented people should have the same rights and privileges that you and I do, and should have all kinds of taxpayer subsidies. If you were to talk to a Dan Kildee, for instance, I don't think you would find him signing up for that. And he's a member of leadership as the deputy whip. But you're right. There are enough of them that it's cause for concern that if you gave them the keys to the kingdom on the far left, that would be probably something that would work into the mix, along with 16-year-olds voting, which has actually gotten a lot more traction than the idea of illegals. But you raise an important point there, and you do have to show an ID before you cash a check. You do have to show your ID before you get on a domestic flight or an international flight. Shouldn't you at least have the same easy, confirmable task be presented to you before you vote? I don't know why that's so outrageous. And if the problem is that there are people of meager means that don't have one, then help them with that. Help them get the ID, just like you help them get to the polls. That's something that a lot of community service organizations could be part of, just as long as they have ID. They're changing the rules to suit the symptom of the problem rather than treating the problem. And
when my aunt got her ID at that time, it was free. I don't know if it's changed now. It probably has, because they're nickel and diming us to death for everything anymore. But even that, you're right. You have community organizations that can help those people who don't have or can't afford an ID to get one. And this should be something that's being pushed instead of all the other stuff that they're talking about with the voting. The absentee ballots and the mail-in ballots are the worst possible thing about this whole bill they're trying to pass, in my opinion, because you can fake anything on those. You don't have to show anything. It comes in the mail.
Well, actually, there is a signature verification process that clerks are pretty rigorous about. The good ones are. There may be some that aren't. And there's also some confusion and some arbitrariness to that process, Jane. So you're right. We voted, I think, almost 2-1 here in the state of Michigan to have no excuses voting. That is different than what the state of Washington or Oregon, and I think there are a few others that do, the true mail-in ballot scenario, which is where everybody's mailed a ballot. That's not happening here, and I don't believe that's what they're talking about here. They're talking about more of a Michigan system where anybody can do this. My problem with that is, shouldn't that be the state's decision? The Constitution is pretty clear. The administration of elections falls to the states. It's one of their rights. And it seems to me that the federal government is putting its nose in where it doesn't belong. Let's get to, before you have to get to a break here quickly, let's go to Margaret, who's calling in from Oakland County. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Excellent, thanks. Welcome.
Good, thank you. Yes, I think this is a great concern. It should be a concern to any conscientious voter, Republican or Democrat, just as what's happened in the state of Michigan with our recent election should be a concern to all of us. Yesterday, you had on Jocelyn Benson, our Secretary of State, who mentioned that she'd done 250 audits, and that should calm people's fears about our results, saying that, it confirmed the election accuracy. And I still ask the questions, if that confirms the accuracy of our elections, then why the lawsuits? Why did our Attorney General literally start lawsuits against any Michigan lawyer who wanted to look into the election and the way that it was handled.
She didn't. I think you've misunderstood what she did. She targeted specific lawyers that said things in court that were demonstrably untrue. And that is what she has done against people like Sidney Powell and others. Some of them were Michigan lawyers that were signed on to that, but most of these were directed at outside attorneys that came in with things that, by the way, they filed suit, and then when those things were going to be tested in court, oddly enough, they withdrew those lawsuits. That happened a number of times. And Ann's nodding her head. She remembers it the same way I do. Thanks so much for both of those calls, and appreciate your concern about election security. And you're right, it's something we should be concerned about on a bipartisan basis. Let's get to Dana Clark, WJR Traffic first. Much more as we head into the 7 o'clock hour here on WJR. Jeff Sloan in your business beat just ahead.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Accident guy reported along 75 northbound after Baldwin Road. That collision is blocking your two left lanes, traffic getting by in that right lane only. Still seeing that vehicle fire closure in Port Huron, 94 westbound between Range Road and Gratiot. It is shut down there. You can
Hey, Guy.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we leave this topic, how does HR 1 address the illegal alien issue that Jane brought up?
It doesn't. It's not part of it. They're not trying to put that in.
So at this point, if that ever, well, it's not going to go through unless something happens in the Senate. But if it was approved, illegal aliens wouldn't be able to vote, right?
No.
Okay.
No. And I know of no one that has formally put that in. Maybe in California, you've got some of the Wiggy folks to the north that have tried it. I mean, you know, the progressives will throw stuff against the wall to see if it will stick just because it curries favor with their crowd. That doesn't mean that it's legitimate or that anybody's going to put it into a bill of this nature.
What would be the reason for wanting, as an American citizen, why would you want that? Why would you want illegal aliens to be able to vote? Like, what would be your thinking?
Only craven self-interest, that you believe that because of that they tend to be on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, that they'd be more likely to access federal and state benefits, that they would vote blue.
Okay. Okay, interesting.
I mean, it's a form of vote harvesting.
I've just never understood that. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no. I mean,
there's a certain amount of common sense in all of this.
You know, the problem with this is
a lot easier than you.
You see, the media on the right will take the biggest outlier in the Democrat Party and try to make it sound like that is a mainstream thought when it isn't. We got the same thing happening on the left, with the few that they're proposing some pretty restrictive, probably unconstitutional provisions in their states that would be a step back from and probably be found in violation of the Voting Rights Act.
Right.
They don't speak for the majority of Republicans either.
Right.
Or conservatives for that matter.
Now, when we voted this time around, our process, I felt, was very safe. So we had to apply to vote absentee, and then we got our signature. We did all that. Then we got our ballot. We voted, and then our ballot was tracked. So we received information along the way indicating that our number, had to match, and that kind of thing. Brian Morton was telling me they did the same thing, and by mistake, he put his ballot in Bev's envelope, and vice versa, and they turned it in. They immediately got a phone call from their city clerk who said, "Hey, this is a simple mistake, but you guys got to come in and you got to redo all this." So I think that goes to your point of all of us in the media have to be very cautious about taking one particular thing and then just blowing it up. We really need to be accurate about how this works.
But it's about the context and making it clear that this is not a platform in the Democrat Party. You're going to have people barfing up all kinds of crazy stuff
Yeah.
to curry favor with their special interest groups. That doesn't mean that it is consensus or mainstream dogma within either party.
Exactly.
And both sides do it. And that's the thing, and you and I have talked about this before, is the reporters that chase the most extremist people because it's a great soundbite.
Right.
But is that,
misleading.
and it may be true, but is it accurate? Are you giving an accurate picture of the spectrum of thought? Exactly.
You know, I just think in the media, there needs to be more conversation about that. You know, all of us.
There was one reporter in particular at Local 4 that just drove me crazy.
With that kind of...
He ended up covering a lot of school board stuff in Detroit, and he would always go to, oh God, I forget his name now, but the math teacher at Cass Tech.
I know.
He was a socialist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he ended up being president for a brief amount of time. And this guy would always, even though this guy wasn't even in leadership in the DFT, he would go to this guy as a member of the rank and file. Well, he wasn't. He was so far left of most teachers in Detroit, it was crazy.
Right.
But he was, he was an inflammatory guy, so it was a good soundbite.
Mm-hmm.
I had teachers coming up to me at public events saying, would you please stop going to this guy? And I said, I don't. I come to you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So when we come back here, why don't you talk to Marie about something a little lighter before we get heavy again and talk a little bit about that Meghan Markle? Not that it's light, but it's something different.
Mm-hmm.
Because Marie will have some interesting perspective on that, I think.
I know nothing about it, so...
I bet Marie will. I will send her a little note. Let me say. Access for some. Bring up.
I didn't realize that Meghan was almost 40.
I didn't either. Is she really?
Mm-hmm. She's 39.
40? Is he Ethereum? I guess maybe, huh? He's 36. So he is 3 years younger. And the Queen is 94.
I'm worried about Prince Philip.
They switched him to that other hospital.
It sounds way too familiar with what we're going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? And that maybe they switched to like a long-term care thing or something, care facility. Jane's harsh on Meghan. Look what Jane wrote about Meghan.
I don't know that I've ever heard the term crown chaser. Maybe it's because, when you don't have a monarchy, you don't have that problem. How can I drink Coke at 6 a.m, Jane? Here's even the worst part. It's 2-day-old Coke that's been sitting here. That's how desperate I was for. I got so dry.
You need more coffee?
I didn't run down and get my coffee. I think I've got probably 60 seconds here.
Yeah, you could, Dane, or
just turn down your thermostat to 68 or below.
Oh,
and press
Dave.
warmly to say
Dave.
So right.
go green.
Easy, right?
Keep rugs off vents, open
Oh,
blinds.
does Marie know that we're going to be chatting?
That's easy.
Yes.
Told you so. At dteenergy.com/save energy, you can learn even more. DTE.
The Paul W. Smith Show, News Talk 760, WJR. Here's special guest host, Guy Gordon.
As we've been discussing, there's a big showdown coming up in Lansing. $4.2 billion spending bill passed by the GOP House and Senate. with strings attached, strings that require Governor Gretchen Whitmer to give up some of her powers or at least transfer them to local health departments when it comes to pandemic-related orders. And we're going to get into that with Zach Gorschow, the fine reporter from Gongmer News Service, coming up in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to lighten things up a bit. Marie, tell me explain this kerfuffle to me going on in the palace. Meghan was she really bullying staffers, or were they bullying her?
Well, that's, that remains to be seen. And also, we should also say that all this press is coming out, of course, because Oprah has a big interview with the Duchess of Sussex and Prince Harry coming up this weekend. So this is all pre that interview. But apparently she's made some pointed remarks about having difficulties within the royal family. And after little snippets of that interview went out, now there's a report that Buckingham Palace will be investigating allegations that Meghan had bullied the staff at the palace, that apparently she bullied several staff members, and that now the palace is going to investigate that. So who knows where the truth lies in all this.
What was the bullying over? Was it that her tea was too cold, or was was it about the clothes she was wearing and some of the protocols that they thought that she was violating?
There is not a lot of reporting on what was the source of the actual bullying, but other than that she bullied staff members. And it doesn't even say how many.
I did see one report that said it was while she was pregnant, and I'm sorry, any feistiness that happens while you're pregnant, any complaint should be waived. It just comes with the territory, okay? It's not easy being pregnant.
Right, exactly. And can you imagine, I know it's hard to imagine for you to be pregnant, but if you can imagine being pregnant, but then having every move you make being scrutinized and being made public in the media, in front of the whole country. I can't imagine the kind of pressure that she was under, that any of them really are under in the royal family, but in particular for her, because she's an American. She grew up here. She doesn't have a real handle on what that was like for them.
Well, she's not part of the official royal family in terms of any official duties anymore. So what does an investigation that apparently has now been sanctioned by the palace mean? It kind of means that they're a little bit at war with Harry and Meghan, doesn't it?
It definitely says that. And a spokesperson for the Sussexes says that this report now is, they quote, a calculated smear campaign. Okay, so there's some bad things. I think there's some bad blood, shall we say, between the two sides here.
So I wanted another story that's out there that nobody is discussing, and I think it's huge, and it's certainly huge from a business standpoint and from a privacy standpoint. Google is no longer going to use your web browsing history to send you ads. It is not going to target you anymore based on your web browsing history. I think that's a huge step forward in getting rid of the junk, and I'm using that as a nice word. There are a lot of other words I would like to use. Getting rid of some of the garbage on my social media pages and on my normal web pages.
Yeah, but you know what? When I hear that, though, I just wonder what they are going to use to cultivate our targeted ads, because that they're not going to go away. So they're not going to give up. Google's not going to give up that easily. Mm-mm.
I don't think so, but I do think what they're doing, Marie, it's a preemptive action on their part, because I think they know that this was coming legislatively or right from a regulatory standpoint anyway, and so they want to get out ahead of it. I think they know that that's a battle that they were about to lose, and they just think it makes sense that maybe they clean up their business stuff this way.
Yeah, it might be, but I still think they're going to find another way to target ads to me on things that they know that I like or, have interest in.
And by the way, have you seen the other story that some Roombas are going rogue? That some Roombas, apparently there was an update to your iRobot or your Roomba that made the sweeper act like it was drunk.
Oh, I had not heard this. No, I don't have a Roomba. Do you?
We've got one, and we love it, especially up at the cottage. It gets rid of the dog hair. It's terrific. My daughter has one that she's named 3 Sweepio, and it gets rid of her dog hair as well. She loves it. But, here's my concern. If a robot can get drunk, and then should I worry about Alexa divulging all of my secrets when she's had a few too many?
Oh, yes. And I don't know about you, but I thought it was very interesting. Right before the big Christmas or holiday shopping season, we got a message from our Alexa saying that that she would no longer tell it. You know how it'll say, Marie, you have your socks arrived today. So, they'll tell you what you ordered. So because of the holiday shopping season, she said, no, we're not going to tell you what's in the packages anymore, because in case someone's listening, that you've purchased something for. So,
well, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've got folks talking on Facebook about the fact that when they've mentioned it on social media, whatever the product it may be, that they notice almost instantly ads for that pop up all over the place.
Yeah.
And that is very true. All right, Marie, thanks. We'll be checking in with you in just a few minutes for news. In the meantime, we turn to our good friend Jeff Sloan. It's WJR's Business Beat for your Thursday morning.
Good morning, Guy. How has the pandemic reshaped the media business? Well, one way is that it's created a sizzling hot category out of one already hot and growing. That category? Digital audio. That is one of the takeaways from PQ Media's latest update on consumer spending on media content and technology. Of the 28 digital media categories, the fastest growing in 2020 was digital audio subscription services, which rocketed to a 40% growth rate worldwide. The growing popularity of podcasts was among the primary drivers behind the sizzling hot growth, as Spotify.
Danielle, quick question. Coming out of Jeff, do you need me to throw to traffic, or could you just have Dana jump in? I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee.
That's up about 6% from 2019. PQ Media also noted that the number of U.S. podcast listeners grew more than 30%.
You know what? Never mind. I'll throw it
to more than 100 million listeners.
I'll throw.
So what's the key takeaway? Look, the pandemic is reshaping business sectors in dramatic and accelerated ways like never seen before. Trying to figure out what business to get into? Look for opportunities in sectors like this one that are growing rapidly as a result of the dramatic shifts in business today. I'm Jeff Sloan, founder and CEO of StartupNation.com, and that's today's Business Beat on the great voice of the Great Lakes, WJR.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
75 northbound after Baldwin Road accident continues to block that left lane. 30-minute delay for trucks across the Blue Water Bridge traveling westbound between Canada and the U.S. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel.
Seen some clouds in this morning, but I think we'll get some sunshine around in spots as we go through the day. Partial clouds and sun by this afternoon, 36. Overnight tonight, cleared out down near a colder 20 degrees. Suburbs even chillier. A few clouds and sunshine tomorrow. Gusty northwest breeze and milder 44. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stidgicon, News Talk 760 WJR.
Bill Jr. here for Kangaroo, where we hop to it. Do you have an old tired roof, but you don't have the money to replace it? Well, let us replace your roof today, and you don't have to pay for it for 2 years. That means you get our award-winning, licensed, insured, background check, and drug screen team and our industry-leading guarantees, and you don't have to make a single payment on that roof for 2 whole years. Don't settle for some pickup truck chuck. Choose Kanga-roof.com. That's Kanga-roof.com.
Kangaroo, we hop to it. Grandma, why was there no powwow this year?
There's a disease spreading, and if we catch it, it can hurt us. It's called COVID-19.
What can we do?
We must keep our distance around people, always wear our masks, and avoid crowds.
Got it.
Vaccines are here, but until enough of us are vaccinated, we must all do our part. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
So much is happening, but who can you trust? You need to check out Newsmax TV, the fastest growing news channel in America. Watch it on all major cable systems and see shows with Sean Spicer, Greg Kelly, Lindsey Keith, Stinchfield, and Rob Schmidt. They're giving you the real story on Biden and Pelosi. So download the free Newsmax app on your smartphone now, or watch Newsmax on Roku, YouTube, Pluto, Zumo, and more.
Lori says you need a Keurig in the office.
Oh, that's it. Well, yeah, but then I would not burn any calories. Running up and down the stairs to the coffee pot is the only exercise I get in the morning.
Getting during the morning.
And right now the dog is really incensed because I came downstairs and she thought it was to give her breakfast, and I didn't have time to do that because I had to run back up here. So we will take care of that during Marie's news.
I was going to say, you could do that at 7:30 if you'd like.
If Addie Mae starts gnawing on my leg, that's what that's about.
Is there just one dog?
Just one, but my daughter's dog, Holly, comes a lot. When we take care of Lucy, my granddaughter, we also get Holly. And Holly is just the funniest, smartest dog I've ever known. And she is a pound puppy. We got her out of the Oakland County shelter, and she's amazing.
So we have Holly, Addie, and baby Lucy.
And baby Lucy, yeah.
Is baby Lucy going to Florida?
Yes, she is.
Oh, the whole gang is going.
The whole gang.
And is the group from California, that whole group coming?
So Whitson.
Or just Whitson?
My eldest, just Whitson.
Okay.
But they have been. So my daughter-in-law's brother is a doctor in California, and he has so freaked out these kids that they are, they're really, really strict and very, very careful. And then they have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I don't begrudge them that. And, it's about everybody fighting their own risk. But Whitson is willing to get on a plane to come visit his failing grandfather. And it's just the thought of it makes me cry.
I know.
It's so wonderful. Nice. He's such a good kid.
Yep, he's a great kid.
So
very nice thing to do.
So the system we're using is really kind of interesting. My brother-in-law's been doing it, and this is great if you can afford to do it, which is we're getting him a first-class ticket, which means he will have a row to himself in first class.
Wow. Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith.
He's going to be
Guy
first on, last off. Well, welcome back in. As I said earlier, there's that scene in a Western movie where the old geezer comes crashing into the sheriff's office saying, "It's going to be a showdown, a huge shootout right in the middle of Main Street." Well, that's what's happening up in Lansing as this $4.2 billion coronavirus relief plan was passed yesterday. And there are a lot of strings attached that will get the governor's hackles up, that's for sure. Zach Gorschow is covering it all for the Gongwer News Service up in Lansing. Zach, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
I got to tell you, I love listening in on the Whitmer briefings, and you come in with some of the most laser-focused questions that that I really appreciate and put her on the spot. And I as good reporters do, and I really appreciate your work. I'm glad we could connect. When you look at this, what are the strings that Republicans have built into this bill that require her to give up some of her powers? Explain to us what's in there.
So there's two big things they've attached parts of this funding to. One is to say that the orders the Department of Health and Human Services has issued during the pandemic since October, these are the things that set restrictions on capacity and require mask wearing and so forth, can only last for 28 days. Right now, under Michigan law, there is no limit. It is really as long as there is an epidemic in place, the department can issue orders as needed. This was put in place after the 1918 flu epidemic. So there would be a 28-day limit under legislation that the Republicans are pushing. And the other piece is to say that only local health departments could order the closure of in-person schooling and halt sports, not the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So if the governor were to veto those bills, it appears it would eliminate or prevent the appropriation of roughly $1.1 billion out of the overall $4.2 billion that these bills would appropriate.
Well, the one, as I understand it, would put the state law more into line with the 1976 Emergency Powers Act that says you must get that emergency declaration renewed after 28 days. They're operating under the epidemic law, which gives the health director enormous powers. This would try to clarify that. But in terms of the other one, doesn't it set into motion where you can have 88 different county rules instead of really one unified strategy for a state in an emergency?
Yeah, it certainly does. Most counties have their own health departments. There are some multi-county health departments out there, but yes, it would likely create a patchwork. The idea being that local governments could best decide what makes sense for them, but at this point, there's the counter argument to that is if people are mobile, they travel between counties, and you would be opening up risk level by doing that.
Well, plus there's a confusion aspect to this as well. You'd have a patchwork quilt of regulations where you may be able to get a haircut in one county, but where you work in a different county, you can't. And it would lead to some confusion about what's fair in the different areas where you reside, work, or travel to. So what does the smart money say as you're taking the temperature of the executive branch about whether or not she will veto this wholesale or veto it in pieces?
Well, one of the debates that's out there right now is whether the language in one of the school aid supplementals that says only local health departments can close schools for in-person learning and close down sports, and that would prevent the appropriation of about $840 million to schools. There's some discussion about whether if the governor were to veto the bill moving power from the state health department to local health departments, if that would actually stop the funding. There's definitely a number of people who are looking at this saying, yes, it would. There's some other people that have a lot of experience also with looking at state legislation who say, it's not necessarily airtight. So I'm sure the governor's office is going to be looking for any way to say that this somehow is an unconstitutional wording of language and maybe try to still veto the bill and yet appropriate the funding and sort of dare the legislature to stop her from doing that. So I don't the governor's office is being very tight-lipped on what they're going to do. Clearly the governor has said for some time she will not sign legislation that takes away executive powers for her and for future governors. It would be, I think, somewhat surprising if she agreed to sign those bills and do that. But, it would be a heck of a problem to go ahead and prevent the allocation of more than $1 billion in funding. She wants all $5.6 billion in federal funds out there. These bills don't do that, and then they really won't do that if some of the funding gets torpedoed by these related vetoes.
Well, we understand what's at work here. I mean, the GOP is, I think, in some minds, justifiably exercised that they've been bypassed, and there's been an end around over their oversight function and also the power sharing that would normally go on in state government. The problem is here that you've got Democrats saying, well, they're not allocating this money. That means we could lose it. Donald Lisinski has almost suggested that somehow we are forfeiting billions in dollars, and the governor has kind of suggested the same. Is that true, or is this money still going to be there in Washington if and when we need it?
Well, it won't go away right away, but certainly if, I don't know the exact period of time, but let's just say hypothetically, if the state were to not appropriate this money for a year,
right?
6 months to a year, the federal government isn't generally, they don't send states money to have them just sit on it. That there would be, I think there could be an issue. So, it's not an immediate problem. I think the biggest concern that the Democrats are voicing is, we need to get all of this money out there now. We need to step up, the vaccine capacity now. We need to step up testing capacity now. All the things that are needed for coronavirus response need to be stepped up right now. Holding on to the money and waiting, isn't doesn't make sense from
Right.
an operational standpoint, is their argument.
The other big news coming out of Lansing yesterday is that the eligibility requirements have been relaxed. Anybody 50 and older, beginning March 8th, if they have an underlying medical condition, can get a vaccine. The other piece of it is 2 weeks later, the underlying part will fade away. Anybody over the age of 50 will be eligible. Just because we're eligible, though, Zach, I'm hearing from a lot of local health departments saying we're only halfway to vaccinating the 65-plus crowd. You're still going to have to wait a considerable length of time, even if you are technically eligible.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And, the Michigan Health and Hospital Association, I thought, had an interesting assessment of this, and they're very supportive of this move. But they're emphasizing this will allow people 50 and older, and that they're pointing out that there are certain areas of the state where there aren't that many people 65 and older left to vaccinate. So this enables those areas to keep moving up, keep vaccinating people, and not basically be frozen in their progress. The AARP also saying, much the same, that the demarcation point for risk for serious illness from COVID really seems to be 50 and older.
Mm-hmm.
This is what, seems to be the recommendation to target that age group. But I think, that's absolutely right, that people who are 50 and older, there's going to be a bit of a wait. It's not going to be immediate. That said, the good news seems to be that with Johnson & Johnson's vaccine being approved and the efforts the federal government is making to really step up vaccine production, that if it goes according to what people are saying, that the supply is going to really ramp up in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So hopefully it won't be as frustrating a waiting list as it was at the very beginning. But I think you're right. No one should expect that on March 22nd,
right,
they're going to be able to immediately get an appointment.
Well, and just because you're eligible doesn't mean that your locale is going to get any more vaccines, because they're continuing to use the same formulas for distribution, at least as far as I know. Zach Gorchow, thanks so much. Gongwer, wonderful news site. It's worth a subscription if you are truly, deeply interested in state political news. Take care and have a great day, Zach.
Thanks, Black Guy. You too.
We'll wait and see to what degree Governor Gretchen Whitmer uses her veto pen. When we come back, the U.S. Senator Gary Peters, the chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, committee about this threat against Congress today. We'll get to that next on the Paul W. Smith Show. Guy Gordon sitting in. Here's Dana Clark, WJR Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Sometimes a hiring freeze happens because you can't find the right people. So follow the warming
Sorry,
trend
Danielle,
to Indeed.
I took
They have
liberties
tools.
there. You're muted, Ann.
You want to go feed the dog? You got time.
Ooh, you're right.
You got 5 minutes.
Thank you. I will do that.
I'll just throw up our
Baldwin and Sashaba, 75 northbound. Watch for an accident blocking the left lane. Stop and go traffic. 30-minute delay for trucks across the Blue Water Bridge westbound between Canada and the U.S. Now, WJR weather first from the Weather Channel. Back to normal today in the 30s. Clouds this morning. Peaks of sunshine this afternoon, a high of 35 tonight. Cloudy skies, your low 20. For Friday, kicking off the weekend, generally sunny, a few afternoon clouds, a little bit warmer, a high of 43. Cloudy skies, 30 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 1 minute.
Attention, Flint water users. A $641 million settlement has been reached involving those who were exposed to water from the Flint water treatment plant between April 25th, 2014 and November 16th, 2020. In order to participate in the settlement, you must file a registration form by March 29th, 2021. To learn more, including how to register to participate, call 1-800-493-1754 or visit www.officialflintwatersettlement.com.
The House of Representatives canceling its session today after the U.S. Capitol Police said that it was aware of a threat by an identified militia group to breach the Capitol complex. The Senate plans to remain in session today to debate amendments to the COVID-19 relief bill. March 4th is a significant date for far-right conspiracy theorists who believe that former President Trump will return to power today. Presidents were inaugurated on March 4th until 1933, after which the 20th Amendment to the Constitution moved the date to January 20th. Legislation in Lansing for funding for the pandemic is on its way to the governor's office, but where it'll go from there, now up in the air. The Michigan House late yesterday gave final legislative approval to a $4.2 billion spending plan, but $1.2 billion in federal funding would be tied to limiting the powers of Governor Whitmer's administration. The state of Michigan will soon broaden its base for those eligible for COVID-19 vaccine. Next up, those over the age of 50 who have pre-existing health conditions, they will start being inoculated on Monday. Then those over the age of...
What kind of dog is that?
Black Lab.
Beautiful. Oh, she's cute.
She's one of the we had one before her, April, and who was not as pretty, but really mischievous. She had a lot of personality. This dog's as sweet as can be. Not the smartest dog we've ever had, but she was trained as a leader dog.
Oh, wow.
And I think they train a lot of the personality out of them because they're working dogs, but she is just such an affectionate sweetheart of a dog.
Now, what do they go off when you do they have like a caretaker when you're out of town, or do they go up north with you?
We've got a guy that we use as a handyman who is a good friend, and he comes and stays with both dogs because he loves them both.
Oh, that's cute.
And all I have to do is he's a Russian. Yes, he's legal. And he comes over as long as I can teach him how to work the home entertainment systems that he can watch his westerns. Then he's the happiest guy in the world.
Can you do a little handiwork while you're...
And he will do a little handiwork while he's here. He also will, and it's good to have someone in the house. So
Absolutely, it is. Oh, Don says they have a chocolate lab. Oh, Ellie, that's cute too. These names are so cute that you guys have.
Short for Eleanor Rigby.
Isn't that cute?
Does she pick up the rice in the church where the wedding has been? If it's a lab, I'm sure she does. Labs have insatiable appetites. They will eat all day long if you let them.
And how often do you let this dog eat?
Jane, I think that's a great idea, that we should sit with our pets and let them do the show with us.
I do too.
But we should have a bring your pet to work day. I agree.
Well, Mike Wheeler, our boss, for those that are watching, his dog loves Zoom. And so when he's on Zoom and we're in meetings, that dog has to sits right on his lap.
Steve or Mike?
Mike.
You're kidding me.
No.
What kind of dog does Mike have? I've never been part of that.
It's the most beautiful dog you've ever seen. It's like it looks like a stuffed animal. I think it's got part of it might be Labradoodle, but I've never seen anything like this dog. She's just beautiful, but she is hilarious. Like, she will not leave him alone. If he doesn't really, if it's a big time, fancy meeting, he literally has to take her and put her somewhere else.
That's funny.
She refuses, and she won't just sit on the ground. She needs to come up on the screen and look in and see everybody. It's the most entertaining thing you've ever seen. She's a beautiful dog.
Jane has Dobies. You know what? It's funny, Jane. So many people because of the doggone movies from 40 years ago, they're afraid of Dobermans, and yet they are so affectionate. They're a high energy dog, though. You gotta train them because they're and you really got to train any dog. I get upset with everybody that says, well, don't, pit bulls are awful. No, it's the pit bull owners that don't train their dogs and don't manage them properly are the big problem. But Don, honest to God, they will eat anything.
That's funny. Gary's there, by the way.
Okay.
So Danielle says that. I'm going to put this back in.
It's best-selling truck. So let us help you choose and accessorize the right F-150 for you. Bill Brown Ford Livonia, proud to be your F-150 dealer.
Whether it's 2 a.m. on the weekend or you just need a second opinion, Blue Cross is here with more ways to help you access the care you need. You can call our 24-hour nurse line with any questions
and
during
Jane,
those early mornings.
Dobies have those big snouts, and so they'll put them back like this, like pet me.
Anytime,
Pet me.
anywhere. We are here
So
for it
funny.
all and always will be.
They
Blue
are
Cross Blue
affection
Shield of
pigs.
Michigan. Confidence comes with every card. To learn more, visit here
Well,
for it
same
all.
thing, Pat. With the Rotties, they are so affectionate and sweet.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, it's not going to be a normal day in Washington, D.C., though I'm not sure any day is normal anymore. But on this date, March 4th, it's the old inauguration date, and there are certain fringy members of our political spectrum that believe that today is the day that Donald Trump will triumphantly return to the nation's capital. And for that reason, the U.S. House has canceled its sessions for the day. Also, some very interesting testimony yesterday regarding why it took so long for the National Guard to arrive on scene on January 6th. U.S. Senator Gary Peters, the chairman of the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, at the other end of our line today. Senator, always good to speak with you. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing well, Guy. How about yourself?
I'm great. Are you in business today? And how do you feel about the House shutting down? Because a little guy on my shoulder says it's a little like giving in to terrorists. I'm not sure that I like it.
No, well, we're going to go to work in the Senate. It's business as usual today. In fact, I've got a hearing. We've got two folks who have been nominated for the Office of Management and Budget. So we have a confirmation hearing. I'll have that this morning, and then we'll take the first vote on the COVID relief package that is going through the works. So we'll be voting on that. We expect that early afternoon, and then start debate.
So obviously you folks in the Senate saw the alert. I know the House Sergeant at Arms wrote in a memo that the significance of this date has reportedly declined amongst the various groups in recent days. No indication that groups will travel to Washington, D.C. to protest or commit acts of violence. So how safe are you feeling in the nation's capital? And if it is safe, why isn't the House in session?
Well, I can't speak for them, but
no, you're a smart man. I'm trying to bait you, and you know I am.
No, I know, Gordon. No, I mean, there's significant security here. We've got, in fact, members of the Michigan National Guard are here, so we're very proud. I've had the opportunity actually just recently stop and talk to many of them who are at one of the gates. But we have to continue to do the people's business, and it's important business to get through this COVID. So we need to keep moving on that legislation. Start the debate today, and it's important for us to be here.
So they have changed the eligibility requirements for stimulus checks. Some folks that got earlier checks may not get them at this point if they're making incomes individually over $80,000 or as a couple over $160,000. Do you think that's a smart shrinking of the bill?
Well, I think, we're trying to make sure that folks who need that money get it, but make sure that it's also broad enough to make sure everybody gets help. But it's always about a compromise. We still may have to make sure we're spending money as wisely as possible, as efficiently as possible. So you're going to see a fine-tuning of all these features.
You led the questioning of several people yesterday before your committee, most notably the D.C. chief of the National Guard, who testified that sometime around between 1:30 and 1:40 p.m., if memory serves, that he called that there was a call for help that went out. As you questioned the security officials, how long was the delay from the time that those on the ground inside the Capitol asked for the National Guard? How long did it take for the National Guard to actually arrive?
Well, it took a while to get authorization. It was General Walker who testified. He's in charge of the D.C. National Guard. And he said there was a change the day prior. It needed direct approval from the Secretary of Army. He couldn't respond even if there was an attack in progress, which he testified was very unusual to have that. He was on, the call was out, as you mentioned. The Capitol Police Chief called and wanted help immediately. That authorization did not come from the Pentagon or from the Secretary of the Army. In fact, he said he was concerned. He actually pulled a rapid response team into the Armory. He also had folks who were out in the community doing some traffic work. He had them pulled back to the Armory, put them in riot gear, and they were ready to go. In fact, he even put them on the bus, ready to go. He didn't understand why they weren't going. It was roughly 150 National Guard folks, all equipped and fully trained to deal with the type of thing that was happening at the Capitol, but he wasn't able to get authorization until close to 5 o'clock, and the Army's right down the street. It's like a 15-minute drive. Once he got authorization, they were there. And he also testified that had he been able to send them immediately, there's no question it would have had made a difference on the ground.
So do we know why it took so long? Who was pumping the brakes? And was it just within the halls of the Pentagon, or was there perhaps some influence from the White House?
Well, we don't know that. We have to find that out. We still have questions. So certainly the Secretary of the Army and the Secretary of Defense were in the chain of command. They were the ones that made the ultimate decision. We need to ask them those questions, and we're in the process of figuring out exactly what our next move is, but clearly we need to hear what they have to say.
There's going to be a bill coming over from the House, H.R. 1. It is a voter rights, voter reform bill. It does many of the things that we've already done in Michigan here in terms of no excuses absentee voting and anti-gerrymandering commissions, things like that. But there's also things that are raising some eyebrows, that states wouldn't be allowed to confirm voter identification at the polls or for absentee ballots. Doesn't that unnecessarily lower a state's ability to secure the vote?
Well, sir, I'll wait till the bill comes over to the Senate, but we have to make sure that elections are fair and they're secure. We certainly had that happen in this last election, a fair and secure election with no significant voter fraud or problems. So we want to make sure that we can continue to do that. But we also want to make sure people have the ability to exercise their constitutional right to vote, and streamlining that process is good while also maintaining the integrity of the election.
Well, I understand it's all about balance. That's for sure. But do you think it's appropriate for states to require voter identification to confirm that the voter is who they say they are?
Well, I think you always have to make sure that you have a valid ballot and make sure that the person who's casting that ballot is indeed the person whose name is on it.
Okay. Senator Peters, thanks so much. Have a very safe and productive day in Washington. We'll be watching those hearings that you're leading as we try to get to the bottom of why the Capitol wasn't better protected on January 6th. Take care, sir.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
All right, U.S. Senator Gary Peters doing our state's business in Washington. When we come back, Representative Thomas Albert, who is the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, he'll explain why this federal money will come with strings attached for Gretchen Whitmer, our governor. That's next on the Paul W. Smith Show. Let's check in with Dana, WJR Traffic first.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
75 northbound between Baldwin and Sashabaw, 2 left lanes are blocked due to an accident there. Traffic getting by in that right lane only. Also a slow ride along 75 southbound between 12 and 11 Mile. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Clarkston Window and Door. Over 31 years in business, over 450 combined years of experience installing windows. Trusted specialists at Clarkston Window and Door. Act now to take advantage of 31% off install windows, doors, and garage doors. 248-338-6781 or clarkstonwindow.com.
Overcast with more clear sky to the southwest as we head through this morning. Most of us just partial clouds and sunshine this afternoon. 36. Overnight tonight, a colder 20 degrees. Some of the suburbs down into the teens, actually, most of them. Wrapping up the week tomorrow with sunshine and a few afternoon clouds, a gusty northwest breeze and a high near 44. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stagik on News Talk 760 WJR.
All right, Facebook peeps, am I the only one that looks at what the House did and says, what the hell? How is it that,
for the help and information
that you're allowing these fringe groups to dictate whether you stay in business or not? We hear all the time, we're not going to negotiate with terrorists. How is this any different? You know, aren't you capitulating to a fringe group that's just threatening stuff on social media? It just seems to me, and not that I don't appreciate their concern after what they went through on the 6th and their fears, but it seems to me that this is a time for defiance of stuff like that. Am I wrong about that, Ann? Maybe,
No, you're not wrong about that. I'm very surprised because remember, they went back that night. The night to prove that could not happen, that nobody could stop the nation's business. And we applauded that. You know, everybody thought that was a wonderful thing. So I'm not sure what's happening today, why that's happening.
Well, and the threat itself is vague, weak, fringy. And when the guy that is actually vetting these threats and analyzing them says, look, on recent days, this has been dying out. It appears it was more aspirational than actual. And he says when there's no indication that groups are traveling, in other words, they can see travel patterns, and this, and they know who the usual suspects are. When they don't see those people traveling, and we've already got the National Guard on point. The one thing I didn't get a chance to ask him about is he said he talked to the National Guard. I'd love to know how they're treating them in terms of food.
Oh, yeah, we forgot the food thing.
Well,
we can follow that. I tried to get Dan Kildee on the food thing, but he was too busy this morning.
Well, I can understand that on my show when they say they're too busy. I kind of wonder what they're doing.
Yeah, what are you doing in the morning?
You got a Rotary fundraiser or something at this early in the morning?
It's funny. There's a group of people that are more than happy to get up in that 6 o'clock hour and talk, but there's another group that they're just like, no way. We're not. Well, I guess that's life. Some people are early birds. Some people are not. Okay, so Don's weighing in. Oh, Don. Yeah,
Thanks.
I just don't know.
What's a shot show, Don? I'm sorry. I'm playing Wheel of Fortune.
You're playing. Yeah, you're bad. You're very bad. All right, let's see here. Private chat. Representative Albert is on the line. Good to go.
Who was the old Albert that was Speaker of the House way back when? Was it a Tom Albert? He was Speaker for years.
Of states?
Yeah.
Our state? Oh wait, Michigan.
No, it wasn't Michigan. It was U.S. Speaker of the House. There was an Albert.
There was? Do you think they're related?
I think it was from Texas or something. I got to tell you, I'm growing so weary of this term limited thing where we're getting new speakers and new appropriation chairs every 2 years. It is just the guy barely gets his feet wet, or the woman in some cases, and then they're off to the bench.
Yeah, it is definitely an interesting. That's a whole different conversation, isn't it?
No, I know. And everybody loves term limits, and yet every day I see reasons why my affection for them dies a little bit more.
I can find a list of former speakers.
Have you guys done anything on the whole lame duck debate?
No. Mm-mm.
It's really interesting. I had, oh gosh, it's in my podcast and I can't locate it now, but we had the rep on who, along with Speaker Wentworth, and Speaker Wentworth is really elusive too. I wish we could get him on more often. Since he became Speaker, he's not come on our show.
He's hard to get.
Chatfield was an easy get, and Gideon was always able to come up with him, but it's really frustrating because I think he's got a lot to offer, but he has authored a bill, as has this other rep whose name I cannot remember. He was awesome, talking about why we've got to get rid of lame duck.
Mm-hmm.
He came in as a special appointee for a House member that died
a great education
years ago, and so he came in right at the beginning of lame duck.
Learn more at donorschoose.org.
And watched it happen and was so horrified by the nonsense that went on. He says, this has to stop. And I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. It is a disaster.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, for weeks now, Governor Gretchen Whitmer has been pleading with the House incentive to pass COVID relief. Obviously, she wanted them to pass her COVID relief unchanged. They have come up with their own relief bill, $4.2 billion that they've passed yesterday, and it does require some things of the governor for her to relinquish some of her epidemic powers, or at least those that are exercised by some department heads. This was all put through the House Appropriations Committee, and one of those that was doing the heavy lifting was Representative Thomas Albert, Republican from the wonderful community of Lowell, which is just down the road from where I grew up. Representative Albert, good to have you with us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Great to be on.
You still got the showboat in Lowell?
You know, we have a new one. Come on, check it out sometime. It's not quite done yet, but it's it's looking really good.
All right. Wonderful entertainment, old-fashioned family entertainment venue that you got to check out if you ever want to do a one-tank trip. By all means, go up to Lowell. So you passed the $4.2 billion, but you did hold some money back, and that's causing a little heartburn on the other side of the aisle. They claim you're putting that money at risk, that we could forfeit it. Is that true?
No, that's just simply not true. I think what people are kind of conflating is there is some money that's tied to making some changes with the public health code. So, for instance, some of the school funding is tied with the governor would need to move the ability to close schools from in-person instruction to the local level, and that's where parents can have more input. It's just too important now. We have kids that, it could be 1, 2, or maybe even more grades behind us. And the kids that are getting hurt are those that are the most disadvantaged. We just can't stand up for this. We can't take this anymore. Their parents are demanding that we do something. And here's the other thing that's important. We passed a very bipartisan return to learn plan last year.
Mm-hmm.
It left decisions at the local level. And in November, Governor Whitmer threw that plan in the trash and that agreement right in the trash. And we just have to. We've tried working with her in different ways before, and we just have to go a different approach. Like, it's just not working. So.
Well, let me ask you about that. I've never known a politician to ever relinquish power, so I don't know how likely or reasonable that ask is. I understand why you're requesting that. But really, for the last 2 months, she's been banging the drum to get kids back in class in person, set a deadline of March 1st to do it. The only time where she has stepped over the local control line was when we saw this significant surge in the fall. Doesn't this set up a scenario where you could have 88 different determinations of what is permissible and what isn't, and couldn't that lead to confusion?
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, it's not like 83 different health department directors are going to come up with different conclusions by looking at what the health guidance is. I just don't think that's really possible. But I guess another thing to think about is, Jesus warned about, how do you tell about a false prophet? You know them by their fruits.
Mm-hmm.
Governor Whitmer has been calling for in-person instruction for a few months now, but she's literally done nothing. Actually, she has never actually taken a step to actually try to make that happen. This plan actually has an incentive. So schools that have at least 20 hours a week of in-person instruction will get an increase in their per pupil allotment. So we're actually taking steps, trying to give schools the resources they need to actually make it happen. And I think that's a big difference between the governor's plan and our plan. Another thing, she talks about summer school. She talks about trying to help kids get remediation that are behind. Our plan actually does it. We put about $150 million for summer school grants, before and after school grants, grants for third parties. We tried to, throw the proverbial kitchen sink at it. Whatever we could think of to try to give schools the resources to get kids caught back up, we tried to put that in the budget as well.
Obviously, this has been an ongoing, and I wouldn't call it a power struggle. For you, it's a constitutional struggle to make sure that the legislature isn't left out of the decision-making process. And I understand that. But you are putting yourself at risk, are you not, for those that say, geez, by trying to strip the governor of some of her powers, that she's going to have to veto this, that this power struggle is putting education dollars at risk? Are you worried they're going to blame you for that?
No, I'm not worried at all, because what's going to happen if we don't try here in the House,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't stand up for kids. We have thousands upon thousands of small business owners, tens of thousands of employees who are at risk of having everything they worked for disappear. I gave a speech yesterday on the House floor. It's a similar situation to what we had when Granholm was governor. We had really challenging economic times. The difference then was we have large companies leaving, and around where I live, we had Electrolux left, and that was 5,000 jobs. So you had really noticeable big events that would really drastically change the community. We're having huge changes in our local communities, but it's death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, we're having all these small businesses shut down, and this economic plan it's just not based on science. You look at all the other states are just neighboring around us. Their restaurants are not at the same restrictions that we are. We just have the strictest in the nation restrictions, and it's all about power. It's all about how to maintain control. It's not about what's best for the people. And frankly, we have to do something. Frankly. It would be unacceptable for us to not try to have some type of oversight and transparency into how the state is governed.
Well, and you're also trying to preserve a balance of powers, and I realize that some of that understandably needs to be sacrificed in an emergency, but we're a year into this emergency now, and some of that needs to be restored. A little bit off topic and outside your committee's purview, but we saw the eligibility requirements for the COVID-19 vaccine lifted yesterday. Those over the age of 50 will soon be able to get it. Is that a step in the right direction about making this more about age, or are you worried that when it comes to distributing the vaccine, these social vulnerability factors will still be put into place and make it harder to get in some outlying areas like Lowell?
Yeah, that's part of the problem we've had. I feel like the rollout's gotten better over the last month or so. It started out, it was disastrous the way it rolled out, though. I mean, I did logistics in the Marine Corps. I can kind of tell when things are falling apart, what's going on. It was pretty clear that there was just a lack of planning, and that's what happens. Health departments didn't know how many they were going to get. Health providers didn't know when they were going to get them. There was just lots of uncertainty. When you have a 2-dose vaccine that requires it to get done at exactly a 3-week interval, that's really problematic. So another problem we had was in January, the governor opened the vaccine to another group. I think she opened it to everyone that was 65 and older. Nobody was ready for it. Nobody knew it was coming. Then you had thousands upon thousands of those are 65 or older calling health departments, and they didn't have answers. So we have a lot of, it's called boilerplate, essentially reporting that's going to be required in this bill for how many doses have been given out. There's different categories of people, like what percentage of those people have been done. I'm encouraged to see that we've gotten to 50 and older. I'm just hoping that we're not getting too far ahead of ourselves and that those that are providing these are actually ready for it.
Yeah, they claim they are. Bridge Michigan had a great piece in his talk extensively to community health leaders, and they think they're ready. Of the 2,500 providers that are on the list, only 190 have been used so far. So there's a lot of people ready to take up that cause. Representative Thomas Albert, we appreciate your time. We will await to see whether Governor Whitmer uses her veto pen, and then we'll find out what happens next. Take care, sir.
All right, thanks. Hope to see you in Lowell.
All right, we sure will. That used to be a summertime tradition in Western Michigan, going to see the Lowell Showboat. We'll be back with more right after we check in with Dana Clark, WJR Traffic First.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International.
All right,
with your
I heard a
one-time
barking
$40
dog, so I'm
gift.
going to go let
Provide a COVID relief kit
my
to
buddy out.
That's give to 83393.
Accident continues to block 2 lanes guy along 75 northbound between Baldwin Road and Sashabaw. Traffic is slow in that area. 75 northbound tapping the brakes between 696 and 11 Mile. Now WJR weather first from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Primetime Testing Laboratory. In need of autonomous or electric vehicle testing, Primetime Testing is the industry's best in complete automotive testing services from component level to full vehicle. For your next automotive project, get a free quote at primetimetestinglab.com. That's primetimetestinglab.com. Back to normal today. Temps in the mid-30s, a high of 35. Clouds this morning, partly cloudy this afternoon. Tonight, cloudy skies. Overnight low 24. Friday, sunshine. Afternoon clouds and a high of 43. Cloudy skies, 30 degrees. I'm Dana Clark, WJR News with Marie Osborne in 1 minute.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money. Easy to learn, easy to use, small business software tailored just for you. With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
Did you know just the simple act of dressing for work can make you more productive? According to a recent study by the Wall Street Journal, getting dressed for work each morning can even improve your performance. Untucked shirts are the easy way to look sharp instantly, and they're designed to be worn untucked so you'll stay comfortable all day long. So for your next Zoom call, lose the t-shirt and grab an untucked shirt instead. It'll also be your go-to when we start returning to all the things we've been missing. Try one today at any Untucked store or at untucked.com. Untucked shirts, designed to be worn untucked.
She became overweight, stinky, several vertebrae fused together. Sophie was going to be euthanized. DINOVITE.com. I remember Sophie starting the Dynavite. She has loved it. She is no longer stinky. She is full of life. Dynavite is nutrition. Get them on Dynavite right away while they're healthy.
You won't believe how happy your dog will
I
be.
get my Dynavite from DINOVITE.com.
WJR Detroit and WDVD HD2 Detroit. The great voice of the Great Lakes. 760 WJR, where Detroit comes to talk.
Congress is taking no chances after a threat to breach the Capitol is revealed. Fox's Rachel Sutherland has the latest.
The House canceled today's session after police warned of a possible plot to breach the Capitol by an unidentified militia group. Votes have also been called off for the rest of the week, and staffers have been instructed to work remotely. The threat reportedly stems from a QAnon conspiracy that Donald Trump would return to power on March 4th, the nation's inauguration day, until 1937. Security fencing and a group of National Guard troops have remained at the Capitol since January 6th. Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
Here in Michigan, more people will be eligible for vaccines starting on Monday. Those over the age of 50 who have pre-existing health conditions can be inoculated. Then those over the age of 50, regardless of health conditions, will start getting their vaccines starting on March 22nd. The Michigan House gave final approval to a $4.2 billion supplemental spending plan that ties almost $1.2 billion to measures that would limit the pandemic powers of the Whitmer administration. The action came one day after the Senate approved spending the federal funds. It now goes to the governor's desk for her signature, although she has opposed any conditions. The legislation includes $1.9 billion for education, $2.3 billion for unemployment. Republicans continue to criticize the price tag of the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package. Here's Fox's Chad Program.
Congress approved the first COVID bill a year ago this week, a svelte $8.4 billion bill. This package clocks in at a staggering $1.9
Carl Albert, you're right,
billion.
Don.
Republicans
That was it.
question the size. Democrats
Does that
must
date us or what? That we remember Speaker
They need
Albert.
all Democrats on board just to approve the bill with a tie-breaking vote.
That was back
by
in the
Vice
day when
President
their
Harris.
majority was
Unless they can
huge.
coax a Republican or two to vote yes. Alaska Republican Lisa Murkowski.
Pat,
is
that's a really
believed
interesting
in Florida.
question,
He says
and that is
Alaskans
something when I get
demand
back to
more
my
aid.
show, maybe we'll dive into.
Investigators say an SUV
Because I
carrying
know Andy
25
Levin
people crashed
is
Tuesday in
our
California.
local congressperson is big time behind HR 842, and I've been getting some emails on that. Have you seen that? Ann? Pat raises a really good point on our Facebook page about this, the Protecting the Right to Organize bill, or PRO, which would, first of all, I mean, it is a not very thinly disguised anti-right to work bill. And then it also puts into place, and I don't know if that gets into the check card thing or not.
Don't know anything about this one. Pass the House in 2010. Interesting. Yeah.
And Don, I only look older because of this gray hair. I'm not like all of my TV peers that get their hair out of a bottle.
You're never going to dye your hair?
I get my courage out of a bottle, but not my hair color.
That's funny.
But yeah, I did that when I made the leap from Channel 7 to Channel 4. I did dye my hair for about 6 months.
Uh-huh.
It was such, I don't know how you gals do it. It was such a pain in the butt.
It can be somewhat, it's a thing. You got to keep it up.
But Pat brought it up, and the impact on small businesses, it could put small business people really in the crosshairs in terms of being able to maintain a non-union shop and a better relationship with their workers. And Andy Levin is one of the biggest, as you are probably not surprised, probably, and doesn't die. No, I know. She's much younger than I am.
Right, Don. That's right.
She was 4 when we were working the streets together in 1985.
Yes, Don, that was the proper thing to say. What is it? Oh, Patrick says it does have a check card in it.
Is it? Yeah.
What are you going to chat with Marie about coming back here? Do you want me to tell her anything, or?
Patrick, you're not a fan of keeping Michigan a right to work state? Interesting. So what at 8:18? What is my contribution to the Around Town with Mira Grove, or do I just turn that over to Dana?
No, you can be involved. Yeah, you can. Dana will she knows all about the pool crispy tots appetizer promotion part of it. But no, you can ask away whatever you are interested in about Social House 103.
I'm interested in the name. How do you come up with Social House 103? I mean,
I know.
It's like the old, the old public houses in Britain, but I've never heard them called social houses.
No, I kind of like it. You're going to talk to Marie coming out here, though.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about? You want to go back and talk about eligibility? We had that conversation 2 hours ago, but it's probably good to have it again.
Promo code radio and
vaccine
get 2 months
eligibility,
accounting and payroll free.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
PatriotSoftware.com.
With PatriotSoftware.com, accounting and payroll, keep your time and money.
By the way, Tiger's opening day, 1,000 people.
Got 10,000?
The Paul W. Smith Show, News Talk 760, WJR. Here's special guest host, Guy Gordon.
Welcome back in, everybody. As you probably heard yesterday, big changes coming to the state of Michigan when it comes to eligibility for COVID-19 vaccines. Come Monday, we will see the eligibility fall to 50 years old and older, at least on a statewide basis. There won't be anything preventing local health departments from serving you if you're 50 or older. The first 2 weeks that's in effect, however, a lot of underlying conditions will be required for you to be eligible. And then 2 weeks later, on the 22nd, it will expand to anyone over age 50. Marie, some of these underlying health conditions, no surprise there, a lot of them lung and heart related.
Yes, just as we've known all along with COVID-19 from the very beginning, we knew these were things that could cause poor outcomes if you contracted COVID-19 or further complications. So that would be high blood pressure, AFib, things of that nature. Diabetes, of course, is another one. Obesity. But then there's a couple of other things on there that I know we talked about earlier that kind of raised an eyebrow or two.
Yeah, smoking is considered an underlying condition or a disability.
Yeah.
Self-inflicted, to be sure. I guess if it's lung-related, that does make them more vulnerable to COVID-19. I guess everybody would suggest, or I'm not sure everybody, let me rephrase that. I'm sure there are those that would have concerns that when you put things like that in there, that anybody can say, yeah, I'm a smoker, here's my arm.
Yeah.
Question about how many might try to cheat to get ahead in line. I think and the other thing is we should point out is just because you are technically eligible doesn't mean that within any county you are going to be getting a shot very soon, because according to Bridge, Michigan right now, 47% of Michigan residents 65 and older have got at least the first of the 2-dose regimen, but that means 53% have not. We've still got a lot of seniors to vaccinate.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm hearing from friends that are having difficulty getting their elderly parents vaccinated, either one or the other. In a lot of cases, like mom's vaccinated, dad is not. So and they want to move through those people, those 65 and up. They need to get through those first. So they are warning people 50 and above with health conditions starting on Monday. Just because it's open to you, it may mean it'll be a little while before you still can get that vaccine. And some health departments, I heard some reporting yesterday, are concerned that this is really opening the floodgates now, and they're afraid they're going to be overwhelmed with requests for vaccine.
Well, but they may not be the only ones taking those requests. I mean, the plan has always been to expand this list of vaccine providers. And as I said yesterday, the numbers out there are 2,500 different potential vaccine providers, doctors' offices, local clinics, emergency pharmacies. Absolutely. Yep. Imagine the weight that they could throw behind this effort, make it much more accessible. My goodness, it seems like there's a Walgreens or CVS on every corner.
Right.
But the other part of this is, and we've got 500,000 doses arriving this week, by the way. That's a record. The problem is that's because of the surge coming from Johnson & Johnson. Next week, we've already been warned by the governor, expect that number to fall because we will have quickly used up the pre-produced J&J vaccine.
Right.
And it will be real-time production. My question is, we've got this social, just because you're eligible, if you're in an outlying area or an area like Livingston County that has been termed a low vulnerability area, because there are people of means there, and this is not my verbiage, it's the state's, when they use this social vulnerability index to determine who gets vaccine doses, if you're over the age of 50 with no underlying conditions and you live in one of those areas that's perceived to be low risk according to this formula they're using, you may have to wait even longer. So just changing eligibility doesn't mean you're going to get more access to vaccines unless they change that other formula to make sure that it drives that. And I wish we could have talked to the governor today or one of her health officials about that, but we didn't have the ability to set them up. I do think that's a real concern.
It absolutely is. And I just keep hearing over and over from a lot of people, looking certainly through social media, just a lot of people saying, why did this get rolled out the way it did? There are just so many hiccups, so many mistakes, and this could have run so much smoother. Although they've done a Herculean job getting people vaccinated, this could have really been done in a better manner, in a smoother manner.
Yeah, no question about that. Now, I am hearing from people like the Small Business Association of Michigan. They're saying, thank goodness. They have been waiting for a while now to have a simpler, less complex system for getting the vaccines out there. Brian Calley, former lieutenant governor, this is the quote from him: the Small Business Association of Michigan has continually advocated for a simpler eligibility system. Today's move to open vaccines for those 50 and older with pre-existing conditions accomplishes these objectives. Same thing for the Michigan Hospital Association. They are applauding it as well and are also applauding the increase in supply. So, and we've got local health departments saying we can do it. We know Mark Hackla said that they believe that they can do 5,000 or more a day. It looks like they may get their wish very soon.
We'll see.
We will see, and hopefully it will be done fairly. Thanks so much, Marie. When we come back, who doesn't love tots? And I'm not talking little people. I'm talking about those highly addictive little potato balls. We've got a great spot that is the hot spot for tots next on the Paul W. Smith Show, right after we check in with Dana Clark.
This report is sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Receive a $5 rebate by trading up any non-contact thermometer toward an Exergen purchased at any retailer. Exergen temporal scanners are the only home forehead thermometers proven accurate by peer-reviewed published studies. Details at Exergen.com, where accuracy matters.
Guy, finally, that accident 75 northbound between Baldwin and Sashaba is clear. Seeing a new collision, M14 eastbound at 275 accident blocking the left shoulder of that M14 eastbound ramp to 275 northbound. And the right lane is blocked due to an earlier vehicle fire. It was shut down, but now it has reopened. Just the right lane blocked along 94 westbound after Range Road. Now, WJR Weather First from the Weather Channel, sponsored by the National Electrical Contractors Association, NECA. Put the expertise and skill of NECA signatory contractors to work on your commercial, public, industrial, or residential construction project. NECA contractors like Matic Electric are powering Michigan's future project after project, on time and on budget. Learn more at smcneca.org.
Depends on your location this morning. Some areas got clouds to the west and southwest, a little more clear sky. I think we mix it up, partial clouds and sun this afternoon. Breezy at 36 tonight, 20 and clear, suburbs colder. Friday, sunshine with a few afternoon clouds, a gusty northwest breeze, high of 44. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stitchicon, News Talk 760, WJR.
You know, over the years, our Michigan communities have been through many ups and downs.
So
we'll leave Dana on access, I think.
Okay,
Just
fine.
sounds good on that line.
So is there a billboard in this for me?
I don't, unless Danielle tells us.
And she didn't mention anything this
We just
morning.
call
And
it Around
she's
Town
usually
with Marygrove. It's sponsored by Mary Grove Awnings, so you can mention that. But not that I know of. No, I haven't seen anything. Unless Dana's got something to read for us, but I kind of don't think so, Guy. So after the show, I know you have to go relatively quickly, so we'll have to do those little opens so I can post.
Oh, that's right. And we didn't tell Danielle to dump the music before we got to the intro. Shoot. Okay. Yeah.
So we'll, I mean, she knew that she knows of this problem, so she'll have it help us quickly. But, you could just intro the person for these podcasts, you know what I mean? And then we can figure.
Well, as you saw yesterday, if you tell me which ones they are, I can riff on those very quickly.
She says so far there's only 2 that you have to deal with.
Okay.
So that's good.
Thank you.
And then
so do I introduce? I just introduce. It's time to take a trip around the town with Mary Grove Awnings. Is there a Mary Grove spot we play going into it or anything like that? There's got to be a billboard for this thing.
It's new. This is a new feature. So as far as I know,
is today the first one?
No, this is number 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's relatively new, and I haven't seen a billboard. So I know what we call it. I know who sponsors it, but that's all I've seen so far. Danielle, you can tell us if you've received any other information on that. But yeah, you just do it like you do a regular feature, but highlight Mary Grove.
I love the guys at Mary Grove.
This is kind of a cool thing because they've been working with these restaurants.
Right, to do outdoor dining.
Yeah.
The college examines Michigan's rich heritage and unique food
No, they're
and
just a
beverages
classy
during its
group.
new virtual series, Deliciously
have
Michigan,
some
now
wonderful
through May 1st.
clients.
Visit LorenzoCulturalCenter.com.
Basically friends.
Well, yeah, and that's the part of this that I didn't know when I got into this radio gig.
Pretty cool.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
If you haven't heard about it by now, we've got a great new feature on Thursdays, and it's called Around Town with Mary Grove. Our friends at Mary Grove Awnings sponsoring this, and it gives us an opportunity to focus and give support to some of the great restaurants and eateries around town. And Dana Clark has been active in selecting these. Who is our restaurant of the day today?
Well, along with Chris, our director of regional sales, he gives me, who's going to be on each week. So thank you so much to Chris for that. But today we are featuring Ryan Van, owner of Social House 103, along with his wife, Jillian. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
How are you doing?
We are doing awesome. Thank you for having us.
I am
Of
hungry
course.
because I've been
know.
reading your menu. I am
Me too.
starved.
You're located in Dundee. Tell us about the restaurant, Ryan.
Yep, we're located in Dundee this May. We've been there for about 3 years, and great community there. Lots of support during the COVID crisis. I ran a lot of corporate restaurants over the years, and we decided to throw our hat in and just do our own. And we've got some pretty unique food and pretty unique drinks, and again, in a really cool transient, plus a lot of local community support there in Dundee, Michigan. And I think you're looking at the loaded tater tots, too. Those are delicious.
Oh, and who doesn't love loaded tots? I mean, that is just the very definition of comfort food.
It is. We do have quite a bit of comfort food on there, but we also do a lot of gluten-free stuff and specialty stuff so that we can cater to everybody who wants to come out and have a good time.
There is one item on here. I'm sorry, Dana. I got to ask about one menu item because I don't know if you named this after me or not, but it's called the Drunk Guy.
Oh, boy.
Well, we named it after quite a few people, and it gets its name, the Drunk Guy, because there's a bourbon sauce on it a little bit. So we had to give it a proper name since it had a little bit of alcohol on it.
Thank you for that clarification.
It's not about you, Guy. Tell us about how
It'll
Mary Grove has-
now be called the Guy Gordon.
Right, the Guy Gordon Drunk Guy. You don't want that title anyway. Tell us about how the awnings have helped the business.
Yeah, we've done a lot. I like to think that we did the right thing with any funds that we had to change our business model for, the new normal. But the awning side is something that we never sat anybody out there, never did anything. We threw a few patio chairs out there during the first shutdown, and people loved it, but the sun was just unbelievable on that side. And that's when we got with Mary Grove and ended up putting an awning. And then winter started to come. So then we said, hey, Mary Grove, why don't we enclose this too? And we've enclosed it. It's heated, and it has done, I wouldn't say it's the only thing that kept us in business, but it is definitely a major part of what's kept us in business there, and people love it.
And to what degree do you think that this will be maybe one of the new normals that will stay with us even after COVID has vanished?
That's a great question, and I'll tell you, and Dundee is a very transient town, and folks come through all the time, and believe it or not, I have restaurant owners and managers that cruise through going somewhere to visit family and friends, and they see it and they ask about it every time. Hey, where did you get that awning? How did you get that enclosed? So to answer your question, Guy, I think it's going to be a very new norm. Same with the igloos and other things like that we're seeing pop up. I think folks still enjoy being a little bit distant and outside. So I think it's going to be a new normal.
So what's happening today? What is Mary Grove giving away to the first 25 customers who come in and mention WJR? You have to say WJR. If you don't, not get those free tots.
We might not even act like we know what you're talking about. Yes, the loaded tots are tater tots covered in a spicy jardinera. And some queso and some bacon bits. They got a little bit of kick to them, but they're our number one seller there. People absolutely love them. So our loaded tots are what we're doing for what Mary Grove and WJR are doing for us.
Can I just say, Ryan, that looking at your menu, I'm really impressed with the affordability here. A New York strip for $17, ribeye for $20. Generous portions. Folks that are, even though we haven't gone out to eat a lot, you can go out more often with prices like those.
Absolutely. And one of our, I wouldn't call it our motto, but one of our things that we focus on when we're doing menu items is to have step above food, step above service, but at casual prices. There's no reason that you can't do that. Give somebody great food, great service at an affordable price.
Guy, they even have PB&J tots. Okay, that's it.
I know.
Tater tots with peanut butter and jelly.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
sometimes we got to convince people to try stuff, and when they do, they love it.
You're going to have to put an awful lot of wet naps on my table. Tell me about there's one other item here that's sticking out, and that is pickle fries. So, I've had the deep fried pickles before. They are one of my guilty pleasures, but do you slice them more thinly? Are they shaped like fries? What do you do that's special with those?
They're a lot more thin. They I don't know if you've ever seen a fried green bean anywhere. They look more like that, and they're a lot thinner. So sliced a lot thinner, but that just means you can put more in the bowl.
Or in my tummy.
Exactly.
There you go.
All right. Well, we will look forward to that fabulous offer today. The first 25 customers that mention WJR will get the highlighted appetizer of the day, the loaded tots, crispy tots topped with queso, bacon, and a spicy jardiniere. Let me ask you a quick news question before you leave, Ryan, and that is, how important are these new regs to you that will allow you to stay open up to 11 p.m. and also boosting your capacity?
Yeah, I think it's great. We started at 50% capacity the last time around, and restaurants really learned how to do that and made sure they had the right protocols in place. So I don't think it's anything that we don't know how to do in the industry. And second, it's great. I mean, it's very tough, 25% capacity. If you have a small restaurant, it may not even be worth it to seat a few tables. I'm grateful to have a little bit of a larger restaurant. So any increase is great because folks are going out to eat and restaurants are turning people away. So this is going to be a great way to get into the spring and let some more folks into our building and start building towards spring and summer sales.
Well, I think that if anybody wants to take a road trip, what better road trip would there be, Dana, than to go down to Dundee, visit the Cabela's down there, go hog wild in there, and then cap it off with some tots, burgers, and pickles at Social 103 House.
And drink.
And we're right across the street from Cabela's, so it's perfect.
Well, that makes it easy to
Perfect.
find. Our thanks to our friends at Miragrove for setting you up as well as they have done with your outdoor dining and being able to service your customers in unique ways. Nothing but good luck ahead, sir.
Thank you, folks. I really appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for calling in. Hi to Jillian.
You got it. Thanks. Take care.
And Patrick, one of our Facebook friends, says they are good right in front of Cabela's. So we appreciate the endorsement from our Facebook friends watching us streaming on Facebook Live. Dana, we look forward to the next Around Town with Miragrove next Thursday.
That's right. Coming to a restaurant near you.
All
Who
right.
knows?
I think we're going to have to go out and do some reconnaissance next time
That's
first.
right.
You and
We
me,
must.
kid.
We
All
must.
right. When we come back, the fine superintendent for Detroit Community Schools, Nikolai Vitti, about the reopening of those schools for in-person learning this coming Monday. How will they do it? And I know some suburban schools that are suffering a little bit of envy at this point. We'll be back with that next on the Paul W. Smith Show for your Thursday morning. But first, let's check in with Dana and get some traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Sometimes a hiring freeze happens because you can't find the right people. So follow the warming trend to Indeed. They have tools to help you find the quality candidates you need to help your business. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International. For kids in poverty around the world, things are still desperate. Join Compassion International with your one-time $40 gift to provide a COVID relief kit to a family in poverty. Text the word GIVE to 83393. That's GIVE to 83393.
Only.
Eastbound at 275. Accident is blocking the left shoulder of that ramp. Once again, M14 eastbound ramp to 275 northbound. Earlier vehicle fire just blocking the right lane in Port.
All set for Nikolai?
I am.
It was funny. Crystal just asked me who you talked to at 7:48. They didn't catch Albert's name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if Vitti heard that interview or if he's got some questions about.
You know, that's a good question. Would you prefer not to have the governor be able to shut you down and to keep that decision local or county based?
It'd be interesting to see what he says about that period.
You know, he was one of the outliers when the state superintendent said we don't want standardized testing. Dr. Vitti stood up and said, hell, yes, we do. We got to know where these kids are. We need to establish a baseline for learning loss before we move forward. And I really admired that. He was outside the conventional line from other superintendents, including the state.
Is everybody going back on Monday in the Detroit schools? Is that what he's? Is it hybrid?
I think it's a hybrid.
Okay. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to talk to him to see. I'd like to know what the parents want in Detroit. Like, what are they saying?
Well, and that was the thing. The last time, I think they only had about 30% show, 30 or 40%. So we'll see what the take rate is at this point. Remember, back then there was this $600 unemployment subsidy. So mom and dad could say, I have to, stay home with my child. There was greater incentive there not to send them back.
And now
it's down to 300. If this new bill passes, it'll be 400. We shall see. I thought Albert did a good job, though I think some people will still process this as a very partisan power grab.
Mm-hmm. What about, and I wonder what Dr. Vitti thinks about summer school.
Yeah. Oh, he's huge.
He thinks it's a good thing.
Yeah. And the other thing is, remember when they went back in August, you had those idiots from Breathe to Detroit picketing outside the bus yard and not letting the buses leave?
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't call them idiots, but they certainly didn't even represent the consensus civil rights community viewpoint. They were so radical.
Yeah. Besides, I mean, come on, we're in the worst health crisis we've ever had. Hello, could we please cut it out?
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, and but their thing was, you're going to be killing minority children. Well, the minority, their parents say they want them back in class. So shouldn't that be their choice and not yours?
So have they been online the past several months? Detroit.
Yeah, I'll get him to go across the timeline there. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to talk to him because he's very sharp. Okay. He should be coming up in a couple seconds. And I was thinking, I know you got to go. So I was thinking, could you record that now? Would you want to, or are you okay to wait?
Do you know what, Danielle? If you can tell me what the two are, at least I will have,
just be ready.
I'll have it in my head. I assume one of them is going to be Gary Peters.
Definitely. I would say Gary Peters.
And Tom Albert.
Tom Albert. I would say Nikolai Viti. And if Danielle has any other ones that are easy to do, Dave Herbal was good. Real good.
I've really enjoyed this weekend. Thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We enjoyed having you. You'll have to come back. You have to come back and hang out with us.
I love taking viewer calls, but it's nice to have and it's obviously it's easier for you to get guests than it is for us, just because of time of day. But
we kind of treat the morning. I was trying to think how I would describe this. We kind of treat the morning show like a magazine, like a news magazine.
Yeah.
Where if you wake up in the morning, we would like it so that you would tune in and you would hear everything that was going on as you were flipping through, like you were flipping through a magazine or your morning newspaper, or, you know what I mean? Like it's a big churn though. It's a lot of work. I'm sure you would say it's a lot of turn, a lot of information, a lot of different subjects, but it's interesting. I think there's something for everyone.
Well, the prepping you would think would be a heavier lift because you do twice as many interviews, maybe 3 times as many interviews as I would do on a normal show.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of topics I'm already covering on my gig, so it's not
Right.
it's not like I have to reinvent the wheel or.
No,
it's
if you're a news person, or in your case or mine, a news junkie, it's easy, or easier, I should say, because you just are naturally attracted to those stories,
Yeah.
so it's easier.
It's just making sure that things like that I've got my statistics right.
Right, and it's accurate. Yeah,
yeah.
It's a lot. She says, what I need, okay, so there's your Ryan Van. Oh, she's writing them in there. Oh, Danielle, that's great. She's got them in the chat for you. And then you'll have to tell us, Danielle, for Nikolai, Gary, and Thomas Albert. Jeff is already doesn't have any music on it, so.
Good.
Yeah. And this won't be an issue because the reason this is an issue is because of the way we're doing the show on StreamYard. When you go back, they are able to record you because you do your show on Access, right?
Normally, yeah.
Yeah. So they're able to have a separate side recording with no music. And then eventually, I think, we'll figure this out.
Had a nice talk with Mike the other day about some of the things coming to our studios. That's going to be really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's very good. Everybody's going to be happy about that. Okay, I'm going to let you chat with Nikolai, and then I will be back.
Of getting back to business. Visit apsopure.com/WJR or call 1-800-4-APSOPURE to learn more about APSOPURE products and to sign up for safe, convenient, zero-contact delivery service. That's apsopure.com/WJR or call 800-4-APSOPURE.
Ready to give your smile everything it deserves this year? Start today at Aspen Dental's Everyday Smiles event. Call 1-800-ASPEN Dental and get the care you need no matter how long it's been. New patients, get your health goals on track with a comprehensive exam and full set of x-rays with no obligation. No insurance? No worries. It's free because nothing should stand in your way of a healthy smile. Plus, whether you're a new or returning patient, enjoy 20% off your treatment plan. Experience exceptional care with every service, from routine checkups to dentures. With unparalleled safety standards in place, it's the right time to make a fresh start at our Everyday Smiles event. Call 1-800-ASPEN Dental today or book your appointment at aspendental.com.
Exam and x-ray offer for new patients 21 plus with no insurance. Minimum $80 value. Additional fees may be included in individual cases. Procedure code 150 and 140. 20% off coupon not valid for previous or ongoing work. Orthodontia and specialist services excluded. Offer expires 12/31/2021.
The Inside Outside guys work hard to find reputable contractors for our listeners.
Each weekend from 10 to noon, the guys bring you housing advice and professionals you can trust.
At InsideOutsideGuys.com, every homeowner can find professionals to help them keep their homes in top condition. Be sure to listen every Saturday and Sunday morning, 10 a.m. to noon, right here on WJR.
The Inside Outside guys are brought to you in part by EJH Construction.
This is Guy Gordon. Michigan weather can damage our homes and our businesses, leaving us feeling overwhelmed. Help begins with one simple call to EJH Construction. EJH will contact your insurance company for you and work with them through the entire process, making sure your repairs are done with the highest quality materials and that your property is restored to its pre-loss condition. We here at WJR have trusted them and so can you. 50 years strong, EJH Construction. They are Maybe I should put in that request, Patrick.
800-854-4534 or go to ejhconstruction.com.
Mark, thank you.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
Well, come Monday, it will be a new day, or at least a reboot of sorts for a lot of schools across our state, as many of them have embraced the idea of in-person learning and going back. The largest district, the Detroit Public Schools Community District, among them. Dr. Nikolai Vitti, the fine superintendent, and also our neighbor in the Fisher Building, joining us live this morning. Good morning, Doctor.
Hey, good morning. Always good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. You're taking the leap here. What percentage of your parents are going to be sending their kids back? How busy are those schools going to be?
About, I would say district-wide, about 40 to 45% will be back in the building based on their choice.
Okay, and when you look at this and when the kids come back, what kind of safeguards, what kind of precautions will be there?
Well, to go back to your first question, that's a doubling of where we were in the fall. We had about 20% of our families that wanted in-person learning. So this is a positive sign for us. I think we're going to always have fewer families that are comfortable, but as the vaccine continues to roll out and infection rates stay low, my instincts tell me that number will increase throughout the rest of the spring and certainly summer and fall. But we're doing everything that the CDC requires and then some. We are taking temperature checks at the door, daily symptom verbal checking with students, online symptoms check for employees. Employees had to have a COVID test before they returned. We're managing classrooms with 6 feet of distance, no more than 20 in a classroom. Every classroom has been laid out in a way that the number of class desks have to be spread out by 6 feet. That number that can fit in a classroom is defined by a number that's posted on the classroom door. Deep cleaning classrooms, leaving a checklist of what was cleaned. Deep cleaning buses. And then in addition to that, we have a separate team that visits schools about every 5-7 school days to actually ensure that we're doing all those things, plus always wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. And that's reported, given to the principal, to the district from an accountability point of view. We have an anonymous hotline, an email address that any employee, student, parent can register a non-compliance issue anonymously to hold everyone accountable.
Good.
So, we've done this as DPSCD. We were one of the only large urban school districts open in the summer and the fall. And we had no outbreaks until November. And the number of outbreaks that we had in positive cases is nowhere close that we saw in suburban rural districts throughout Michigan. So we know how to do this. We know how to keep people safe. Our challenge moving forward is just encouraging our families and our teachers that are returning.
Well, I'm hearing from Bloomfield Hills parents that are saying, if Detroit can do it, why can't we? And they're asking some tough questions of their district. So you're putting your suburban colleagues in a difficult spot, Doctor. I got to ask you, though, you are right. You had tremendous success in keeping COVID out of the classroom until we saw this surge. Then you were forced to shut down because of the governor's orders. Do you think you could have come back sooner? And what kept you from coming back sooner?
Well, I'll say that, we've used a 5% infection rate threshold to determine if schools are safe or not to be open. That's a very conservative number.
Mm-hmm.
And we use that because of the legitimate fear that existed in Detroit regarding COVID based on the disproportionate negative impact that it initially had on the community. And so, we, in the fall, summer, we were well below 5%. Now we're solidly below 5%. But what I saw in schools in November was that even with our mitigation strategies, we had so many cases that were popping up, and that led us to have to close cafeterias. We had to, shut down certain grade levels. It was very difficult to manage. So I didn't necessarily have an issue with the governor suspending in-person learning back in November, because honestly, it was not just a number. It was creating havoc in running schools. I think now it's important that the governor set metrics. I've been saying that from the beginning.
Right.
I think we need clear metrics to say, over this level. I don't know what I think the right number may be 5 to 10%. Nationally, experts are saying it could be even higher.
Right.
I think to keep the mitigation strategies. If you're implementing those mitigation strategies, you can keep people safe. But I will tell you, in November, when the surge happened, it was spilling into our schools, and it was difficult to manage schools with that surge. So there has to be something done when those numbers increase. But everything tells me right now we're not going to see that kind of increase again. I think with the vaccine rollout, with people, unfortunately having COVID and the infection rate being what it was, I think we'll be in a position to never have to close schools again unless there's some kind of unique variant that we're not anticipating.
But who should close the schools, Doctor? And that becomes a key question because, right now there is a battle that's it's outright war in Lansing. We've got $840 million in federal school funding that they will release and appropriate, but they're asking the governor to give up some of her power and to leave that to you and to your local health department about whether you close. Would you prefer to have more local control in this circumstance?
Yeah, that's I know you were going to ask me a loaded question. So this is my position. I don't think it's right for the legislature not to pass through the dollars that were lawfully approved by the federal government. That's not their role. Now, they can do that with state money, not federal money. I don't think this is the right political tactic. However, I also agree that the governor needs to use clear metrics for closing schools, restaurants, businesses, and I think it's gone too far along the way that she has not done that.
Nikolai Vitti, you never duck a tough question or a pointed one. It wasn't loaded. It was just important. Thanks so much.
I'll always answer the question.
You do. You never duck them, and I appreciate that so much about you. Dr. Nikolai Vitti, a safe opening to schools on March 8th, and we hope that we can catch up big time. And I know we've got plans for the summer, too. We'll talk about that at a different time.
Take care. Always good to talk to you. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Nikolai Vitti, a wonderful neighbor at the Detroit Public Schools Community District. Talk to Frank when we come back. Stand by. More to come on News Talk 760 WJR. A great 3 hours ahead. We'll get a preview from Frank right after we check in with Dana.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Sometimes a hiring freeze happens because you can't find the right people. So follow the warming trend to Indeed. They have tools to help you find the quality candidates you need to help your business. Learn more at Indeed.com/credit.
Accident still blocking the left shoulder in Plymouth Township guy along M14 eastbound ramp to 275 northbound. Slow ride US 23 northbound between Silver Lake and Lee Road. Now WJR weather first from the Weather Channel, sponsored by Amish Direct Furniture. Amish Direct Furniture carries a huge variety of high quality handmade furniture and made here in the USA. Stop by Amish Direct's new showroom in Sterling Heights. Meet their knowledgeable staff or shop online at AmishDirect.com. That's AmishDirect.com.
Seen some clouds in this morning, but I think we'll get some sunshine around in spots as we go through the day. Partial clouds and sun by this afternoon, 36. Overnight tonight cleared out down near a colder 20 degrees. Suburbs even chillier. Few clouds and sunshine tomorrow, gusty northwest breeze and milder 44. From the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Ray Stitchicon, News Talk 760 WJR.
The Detroit winter started out mild, but has ended up brutal. You can see it with the damage to the streets.
Oh, I'm glad
and
they
the car,
updated this spot.
But you might not see the damage it's done to your roof. Paul W. here. The massive snow accumulations, the freezing and thawing, the ice dams can turn minor.
I'm glad you updated that spot because about 10 days ago it said we've had a mild winter and it was just awful out.
I know. I sent them, after you called me about that, I sent them a note and they immediately changed it because it was like, this isn't working.
Well, you know what was crazy? I almost called them because we had horrible roof dams, and then I realized when we were remodeling our family room, the guys that did electrical in there took our roof heat tapes offline because they had to turn off the power, and when they turned the power back onto the room, they didn't flip the switch for the heat tapes.
We had huge ice dams this year.
It was leaking into the house.
It was?
Yes. We had a small flood in a window vestibule, but it didn't cause any long-term damage, but it was just had to get the pans and rags out, and then I realized that I had to go down on the panel and the circuit panel and look for the turn on, and that was all we needed to do, and 15 minutes later, dry as a bone.
Wait,
it's amazing what they do.
So did you have those put on when you had the roof replaced?
Yep.
Seems like a smart thing to do.
The other thing, we've got a cedar roof, and we had those magnesium strips put in. I don't know if you've heard about that, and they are phenomenal because you don't have to put on an herbicide or anything like that. It has taken care of our moss problem. It's been really simple.
That's cool too. So you don't have any moss on the roof.
No.
Wow.
One of my things though that I am my deferring to my age is that I told Gail I'm not getting on the roof anymore.
No,
I used to get on a lot. I used to do all my work up there, and it just. In fact, I was on the roof on 9/11. I was on the roof getting rid of a hornet's nest up there, and Gail came outside. She goes, "You better come in here. The World Trade Center's on fire." And it's like,
you're like, okay, all right,
Alrighty.
we'll leave the hornets. Hornets are no problem compared to that.
Yeah.
I better text our friend Chris and make sure Frank is good to go here.
Don't you love Nikolai Vitti?
Yes, I do. I think he's very, very sharp.
He is courageous. He is not a follow the crowd kind of a leader, and he kind of called out the governor there, saying, "You know what? We need hard and fast metrics, not this seat of the pants stuff that we've
Learn
been
more
doing."
about vaccines
Yeah,
at
he says it exactly like it is.
cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, he should be there, guy.
Now back to more of the Paul W. Smith Show. Here's Guy Gordon.
We got a great basketball game coming up tonight, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Wolverine fan or a Spartan fan. Someone will go away happy, though, and someone will go away upset. And for the Spartans, there's a lot at stake. Let's check in with Frank Beckman and talk a little sports as well as what he's got going on. 9 to noon here on News Talk 760. Hey, buddy.
Hey, how you doing, Guy? I'll tell you one thing. You get frustrated doing these shows, but it's nothing like the frustration Tom Izzo's been feeling every night, it seems, all season long. He's had a tough year. I feel so badly for him.
He really doesn't know who's going to show up.
No, that's true. That's true. And Michigan with Juwan Howard, who's the odds-on favorite to be Big Ten Coach of the Year, he's had a phenomenal season, and he deserves all the credit for putting that squad together and bringing them to this point where they're one of the top teams in the country.
Yeah, there was a sweet moment, and I don't know the player involved, but Tom was in tears last night in the postgame talking about, even in the loss to, it was the win that they had the other night, how one of his players he just said, there are guys that leave it all on the court. This guy left it on the court and more. And who was the guy that he was talking about? Do you know?
I don't recall. No, I can't recall now either, Guy. I'm sorry.
For me, it just showed how much affection that this man has for his players.
Yeah. He's very, very close with them, and that's that's obviously one of the keys to college coaching. No matter what the sport is, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, you name it. These are not professional athletes. These are still young men and women, for that matter, and so it's different for the coaches, and it takes a special skill to manage that. I think it's like raising kids.
Oh, it is very much, and there's no question he is a father figure, and he takes that role really seriously, and I that's one of the things I just deeply admire about him.
I think his players do too. I think they feel that, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, no question about it. So I got to ask you, how sharp do you think Gretchen Whitmer's veto pen is this morning?
I'd say very. She cannot be happy that the legislature is trying to take her what she sees as her properly constitutionally generated powers. And I suppose if we were in the same spot, we'd feel the same way about that. Now you're on the other side and look at it and you say, wait a minute, you're claiming powers that aren't yours in some of the shutdowns and moves you've made with COVID. And so I think there's going to be there'll be more battles. There'll be more for us to talk about in the coming weeks, Guy. I'll guarantee you that. Hey, you know what I want to talk about this morning, though?
Go ahead, sir.
Is travel, because I've come upon two stories that I'm crossing off my travel list.
Oh dear.
Well, number one is the SpaceX program. SN10 will be going up in 2023, and there's a Japanese entrepreneur who wants to invite 8 people from around the world to come along and fly around the moon. The last 2 SpaceX rockets have crashed on landing, so I don't think I'm going to sign up for that.
Well, it was funny when the day that the first civilian crew member for the other SpaceX flight that's going up, the entrepreneur that's from the States that is going up, was announced, Tesla recalled 60,000 vehicles. And so I looked at that and I said, you shouldn't put those stories together on my Google News page.
Yeah, Elon wasn't real happy about that, was he?
No, he couldn't.
Meantime, Guy, I have decided I am not traveling to China.
Because
China has instituted a new COVID policy that I just can't participate in. Their safety protocol with testing hubs at the Beijing and Shanghai airports. They have decided that they are going to do testing on every visitor who comes into China, and they're doing it. They're looking for COVID with anal testing.
I was afraid there was going to be latex gloves involved when you said that.
Well, there may be. But how about this one? Japan has asked China to stop performing those exams on their citizens because of the mental anguish it can cause.
Are you sure they're not looking for people smuggling cash or other hard currencies in?
It's just this COVID has really set us up for some great conversation. I'll tell you.
Does that tell you everything you need to know about China and their oppressive form of government?
Oh, absolutely. You betcha. And, get your hands off me. No, we got to test for COVID. Are you kidding me?
I know that they swab mouths and that they're swabbing nasal cavities. I didn't know that COVID was a problem on the south end.
Yeah, well, it's apparently not a problem, but because the virus will disappear down there. As you might expect, it's very good at getting. The south end is very good at getting rid of even the most nasty virus.
So while I've got you here, and we don't have, I got to just call you.
I'm sorry I went off on this tactic.
No, it's fine. You've made me sit a little lighter in my chair. I got to ask you though, because you and I don't have a chance to kibitz from studio to studio when we're doing this from home. But we asked the question during our roundtable this morning: what is the one thing you look forward most to doing when we get out of COVID jail? And a lot of us said travel. But what would be Frank Beckman's thing that you're most looking forward to?
I got to tell you, Guy, I have not felt that restricted by COVID because I've done what I've wanted to do. We've been able to go out to eat now, and that's a blessing because we have so many great restaurants out here where I live, and we do throughout Metro Detroit. Mm-hmm. But I would say we'll probably step up going out to eat a little bit. That would be number one for me.
Yeah, you know what we said. I think the consensus opinion at the roundtable was hugging. We miss hug. I'm tired of elbow bumps and fist bumps. Close friends, and I'm not talking Andrew Cuomo type hugging. I'm talking just regular, just guy hugs. People in our life that I think we've come to appreciate even more because we haven't been able to see them. I'm looking forward to hugging and also getting back on the road and doing some.
All right, I'll tell you what. Let's just play Texas Hold'em, okay?
Okay, deal. Yeah. You'll have my retirement fund in your retirement. That's what would happen there. Frank, we look forward to 3 hours of excellence just ahead on the Frank Beckman Show. Take care, my friend.
You too, pal. And sometimes it does seem like 9 hours. I got
Yeah, amen, brother. Hey, it's been a delight filling in for Paul. Thanks to our Facebook peeps. We appreciate you so much. To the regular listeners on WJR, thanks for letting me sit in. We'll be back to do it again, I'm sure, in the near future. In the meantime, take care. Love to all. Guy Gordon Show comes up at 3 p.m. here on News Talk 760 WJR. I'll see you Monday. But first, let's get to Dana Clark,
This report
WJR
is
Traffic.
sponsored by Exergen. Accuracy matters. Receive a $5 rebate by trading up any non-contact thermometer toward an Exergen purchased at any.
I think we can take this off here. I'm going to end this. I think I can do this.
Bye to all. Thanks, Bennett. Love the comments and the stuff on Facebook. And sorry I didn't get a chance to get on and engage more on Facebook today.
Thanks for hanging with us. That was great.
We were juggling a lot, and including a ravenous lab.